Okey doke. We're ready.
Good morning. Good morning, board members, and I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Today is May 17th, and this is our Board of Supervisors of Ventura County, and welcome to your boardroom. And if we might, I'd like to ask that we have a roll call for our call to order.
Supervisor Bennett? Here. Supervisor Parks? Here. Supervisor Michaels?
Here.
Supervisor Flynn? Yes. Supervisor Long?
Yes. Thank you. If we would now rise for a moment of reflection. Today on our agenda, we're going to be recognizing the Peace Officers Memorial activity this week and CB Days. I would like us to take a moment of reflection in respect of those who have given their lives in the line of duty, both in the public sector and certainly in serving our country for the freedoms that we all enjoy. Thank you. And I'd like to ask Under Sheriff Craig Husbands if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me, put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That's called winging it. And before us we have the minutes of our Tuesday, May 10th meeting.
Move the minutes.
So motion and a second. Hearing no objection or questions. One abstain. Minutes have been addressed. Thank you. Agenda review. Good morning, Mr. Nicole.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, members of the board, on the consent item number 12, the title incorrectly indicates that a 4/5 vote is required. That is not necessary. It doesn't require any budget adjustment.
I'm sorry, what item was that?
Item number 12 on the consent agenda.
Any other items on agenda review? I would like to ask that we pull item number 27, which is my item. There's been a little error in coordination on that one, so we will pull that one. Any others? Okay, I'd like to ask for adoption of the agenda review actions.
Second.
Motion is second. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Our consent agenda items 10 through 21. Any questions on the consent agenda? Let me see if I have any cards on consent. I don't think I do. Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Any objections to that? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Now we'll move to our public comment time. I have 3 cards submitted, and I'd like to invite up Christy Madden.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
Sean Nicole. I'm Christy Madden, President of the Ventura County Management Council, and I'm here today to report on another successful year of participation in the corporate games. I'd like to invite our very small representation of participants to come down and join me in front of the boardroom while I give you a little bit of background. This is the 3rd year participating in the corporate games, and we participate in the games thanks to the generosity of the Ventura County Management Council, who fronts the registration fees for participation. This year, our ISD division improved our online registration, so we were actually able to track the number of participants that we had in the games. Last year it was if you signed up for 5 events, then your name showed up 5 different times. But this year we know that we had about 320 employees participate in the games. As I said, this is a very small representation. We're all busy working at our desks, so only those of us in this building are able to come and participate. We had some individuals who participated in as many as 8 events this year. So we had people who really participated and took advantage of the opportunities. There were 28 different events in the corporate games. Overall, the county earned for these events 6 golds, 4 silvers, and 5 bronze, and that equates to about, these are numbers, are estimates, about 22 individual gold medals, 32 silver, and 44 bronze for the individual participants participating in the events this year. Once again, for the 3rd year in a row, the county came in a solid 2nd place overall in the placement. We had 129 points in the end, and we pulled ahead of the Navy in the final days of competition.
Ooh.
The Navy ended up with 105 points. Still, in my opinion, light years away from Amgen, who I think has won every single year that they've been participating. Amgen had 204 points. So we've got a lot of work to do if we think we're going to catch up with Amgen. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to all of the volunteers. We had event coordinators for each of those 28 events. For some of the events, that is a tremendous amount of work. We had overwhelming interest in some events. We had enough people interested, for example, in participating in bowling that we actually had to have, I don't know what the official term is, a bowl-off or something, to determine who had the right to participate in the games this year.
Oh.
So it's a lot of work for the event coordinators. We had people who participated with the T-shirt and the sweatshirt, ordering, distribution, handout. That's a lot of work. I'd also like to thank ISD, who made some great improvements in our online registration system this year that allowed us to put unique employee ID so we could track individuals participating in the events. And we had a nice crew for closing ceremonies, and Supervisor Bennett showed up to help us tug a rope. We weren't particularly
And
successful.
we finished 4th in the county.
That's right. 4th in our
Out of
division.
everybody in the county, we finished 4th.
That's right. Very good. And it was a good event. But we had a wonderful support team at the closing ceremonies to provide shade structures and lots of wonderful food, thanks to Marty and Teresa Vitale and others. Next year, I think the Management Council is once again committed to participating. We're going to try and start a little bit earlier. I have heard some rumblings from some people that some events will have ongoing leagues or participation throughout the years. So that will give us an opportunity to get more participation and interest in the events. But it was a wonderful event and opportunity, and I think it was a great morale builder for everybody in the county. So I'd just like to say thank you very much. And
Thank you.
somebody have a camera. Maybe we'll take a quick picture.
Thank you all for representing us so well.
Look at-
What fun,
You are
yeah.
so organized.
Madam
here.
Chair, if we,
We have to get over here.
Supervisor Bennett would like to say a few words.
yeah, while you're lining up and having that picture taken, I just wanted to point out that, well, sure.
And point out on your way down.
Must be contagious.
Now.
You'll find when you've been in office for a long time, you have no more place to put those pictures. Start boxing them up.
Gail's new camera, she's so proud of it. Yay! Smile. Yoo-hoo! Yay! All right. Well, we thank you for all your efforts representing us proudly.
And if I could, Christy, and maybe the other participants before you leave, I think the essence of the corporate games and why they work is that for almost all human beings, there's just a great joy in competition. And, and the question is finding those things that are competitive that you feel good about competing at. So when I hear the story about Roberta going to the putt-putt in advance and taking notes on every hole before the competition, and the joy that put on my face and everybody else's, there is some, and that's what's great about the corporate games. There's such a wide variety of things that everybody can be involved with. So I wanted to suggest something, and that is for next year. You talk about the awards winners. We had a gold medalist walk in late here to the room, right? But if people know in advance that we would have here, this is a suggestion that I have, that we'd have actually a medal ceremony here in the boardroom where we play dun, 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 and let our gold medalists walk down and our silver medalists. I think you would find another level of competition. I think you'd find people being real interested if they thought that was going to happen. So I throw it out as a suggestion for us. Thank you very much.
Hear, hear. Other comments? Thank you again. All right, next up, Carol Dean Williams.
Those two things, my best. That thing there.
Good morning, Carol Dean Williams, 59-year resident of Ventura County. I'm glad Craig's husband is in the audience. I have been threatened by the sheriff that if I file any citizens' complaints, he's going to refuse. He has refused to investigate my other ones and threatened me for filing more. So I spoke it in the presence of Craig's husband, but Sheriff Brooks isn't here. I was informed this morning that at least one board member is deeply religious. I am deeply religious. And I've called your county council to ask, is it legal or will I be arrested or treated otherwise for reading word for word Cohen versus California, number 299, Supreme Court of the United States, 403 U.S. 15. He refuses to answer me. So I have a prayer for my deeply religious convictions. Almighty God, you live and reign. You sent your Son, Christ Jesus, to earth. He is Lord of all. Cleanse my tongue, O Lord, after I speak the words of the United States Supreme Court, because the Board of Supervisors prohibits me from drinking water now. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Yes, as a deeply religious person, I would have to cleanse my tongue because I have never spoken that word, nor have I ever written that word, but my ears has been subjected to that word all my life. The rabbi, I'm going to contact the rabbis, the Psalms written in Hebrew, the native tongue Hebrew. Psalms 109, when you are falsely accused, Craig husband, the opening words of the psalm sets before us the problem this man faces. Quote, be not silent, O God of my praise, the God I just prayed to. For wicked and deceitful mouths are opened against me. Speaking against me with lying tongues, they beset me with words of hate and attack me without cause. Psalms 139 asks, who am I, Lord? Everywhere today, one hears of those who are passing through an identity crisis. This is a fancy way of saying what people have been asking for a long time, who am I? Well, let's see who Judge Purnell says I am. For the record, this is an accurate and an exact tape recording of Miss Goldberg, Judge Purnell, and Attorney Baker. Goldberg said, "This is excusable neglect." This is in a court of law. "This is excusable neglect, mistake on my part, even with my 20 years experience." Judge Purnell, does the defendant, Carol Dean Williams, have prior convictions? Attorney Baker, no. Judge Purnell, Miss Goldberg, why are you on the phone when court is in session? Now, I'm repeating his voice. Craig Husband. Miss Goldberg, what are you doing on the telephone? You are interrupting the court. Judge Purnell, we will proceed to jury trial. Judge Purnell, many people that Williams has tangled with. Baker, court makes a ruling without defense response. Goldberg speaks against the United States Supreme Court. Goldberg said county counsel did not file the document. Goldberg said, I do not intend to try this case without a jury.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I'd like to invite up Martha Lunsford. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you can pull that down, there you go.
All I wanted to do was say thank you. Just thank you for your help with drug court. That's all I have to say. And after that, I think that's enough, right?
Well, we thank you.
Steve Bennett's office came through beautifully. I mean, really beautifully, and given us help. These teenagers have got to have people behind them. And thank you for being that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, board member, that concludes our public comment period. And at this time, we will have an opportunity for board comments, and we'll start with Supervisor Michaels.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I have a request for a future agenda item or workshop or whatever you want to call it. Last week, I was not here because I was at the SACRS meeting, State Association of County Retirement Systems, for those who don't speak alphabet soup. And the big discussion that is on everybody's mind right now is defined benefit versus defined contribution. And what's going to happen? What's the movement going to be in Sacramento? You know, is it going to, is the retirement system for public employees going to change? And if so, how? And one of the issues that no one is really speaking to, and I would like to have some information for the board, and that is, what are the implications of moving from defined benefit to defined contribution? If you have a cutoff date of 07, say that's what's been thrown around, who knows what it would be, where henceforth all employees would go to a defined, some iteration of defined contribution. We still have a tail of liability, if you would. We still have lives in the retirement system. And, you know, what is the actuarial discussion around how do you maintain the obligation? And these employees are vested, so there's an obligation from, you know, the time that they're vested in the system until the time that they pass on. And it's okay to throw around all of this discussion about we'll save all this money, et cetera, but the county, and I'm not saying which way I would go because I truly don't know, but I think before anybody makes a decision, We have to talk about what would it cost the taxpayer for a dual system, and how would we maintain the obligation with a ever-lessening pool of members and no new members coming in. And no one is talking about that. They didn't talk about it at Sackers. As you might expect, most of the discussion revolved around how do we stop this movement toward a defined contribution. I don't have enough information for myself to say which way would be best. I do know that there's an impact that no one is speaking of, and it's easy to throw out, we'll save millions of dollars, with county public employees. The system's gotten too expensive. So there's two things. A, how do you take care of those lives for as long as you need to with dwindling contributions? And secondly, are there ways that we can improve the system and contain costs and still maintain defined benefit? And I think those things are important for us as policymakers to understand, because we are ultimately the ones. The retirement board has the fiduciary responsibility over the funds, but the board has the policy over the decisions for benefits. And so I'm not asking for it right this instant. Whenever there's kind of a clear time on the agenda, I think it would be really important to at least start the discussion. I truly believe that every employee in this building and every other building is concerned and confused and doesn't have a lot of information, and no one is getting any information out there. So I think for ourselves as policymakers and for the employees, we need to start the conversation, start the education before it hits us smack in the face. And if it goes on the ballot, and if it is something we have no control over, how are we as an employer going to be prepared to handle whatever happens? That's the problem with initiatives. They may be theoretically wonderful, but boy, are they hard to implement. And sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. So I ask that. And then secondly, I will be in Phoenix Thursday and Friday for a Southwest Defense Alliance meeting. Perfect timing, because with the BRAC list out, there are a lot of issues for us as the six-state organization to discuss. And there's been a lot in the paper. There's been a lot of what I consider highly emotional reactions to the BRAC list. Perfectly understandable. But I think we all need to take some time. We are not at all thrilled about the potential job loss with the realignment that is proposed, only proposed by DOD. It is a tremendous amount of jobs lost, and most of them are from NavAir. Most of them would go up to China Lake. But I think before everybody goes hysterical, we need to assess what that means. We need to have a strategy to move forward. The only opportunity to do anything will be before the BRAC Commission, the Presidential Federal Commission, because this is supposedly, and if you believe this, I have a bridge I'll sell you, non-political process, and that when the commission makes its decision and gives the list to Congress and the President, they have an up or down vote period. They will not be making any changes. So I think as a community we should all celebrate the fact that Naval Base Ventura County is not on the list, either site, and as we all know, Magoo was in '95. And I think we need to be concerned about the job loss, but I think we need to be rational in our response to the job loss and do a whole bunch of analysis that I certainly haven't had a chance to do. East Coast versus West Coast, Navy versus civilian. There's a lot that needs to be done. So, I would like to publicly thank the BRAC task force through Visita that has worked so hard on the issues before the list was exposed. I say that on purpose. And then I would also like to thank the members of RDP 21 who have worked for the last 10 years on an everyday, year after year basis to support what goes on at Naval Base Ventura County, to support our military partners and personnel, and to lobby to strengthen the base. And I believe a lot of that work helped in keeping Naval Base Ventura County off of the BRAC list this time. So I would like to thank everybody who's worked on this issue, and I would also like to gently caution that we need to assess the situation and have a rational approach to the commission and the testimony that we give, which has to be military value of the base, military value of keeping the jobs here versus going to China Lake. RDP 21's job is to then decide, or not decide, but to strategize on, okay, if we lose those jobs, are there others we can get? How can we help the Coast Guard to make up their mind, finally, to bring in a whole contingent and perhaps their deep water UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles, demonstration and test project to Point Magoo. So we may end up with a, no net loss in the long run, but I'm a little concerned by some of the comments in the press that we need to charge right out and do something about this. NavAir was the one that made the decision, headquarters, Pentagon. And so we need to assess why they made that decision. But again, I say I'm thrilled beyond belief that we don't have to fight the fight of getting the base off of a list, because that's the tough one. And I think we prevailed well. And to all of my fellow board members, thank you for all of your support to the military. Kathy has handled the BRAC task force assignment and done an awesome job and got up to speed real quick. And so everybody say thank you for being off the list, and we will continue to protect those jobs if at all possible, and we will always try to bring new ones in here. Oh, and then I also have a ask the board to adjourn in memory of the persons on the list that I will submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Bennett.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list. I'd also like to just point out to the public that there are many jobs that supervisors do that probably aren't recognized, and I think that the three of us that weren't on BRAC or RDP should publicly acknowledge that Supervisor Long served on the BRAC Commission, Supervisor Michael served on the RDP 21 Commission, and that work was essential for us to keep those bases off of the list. If RDP 21 had not actually brought in new moved us from experimental to actually operational in some areas, it's very likely we would have had a base on the list. And so those kinds of trips to Washington and all of that stuff are an additional added responsibility and burden in terms of a busy supervisor schedule. So thank you to both Supervisor Long and Supervisor Michaels. A lot of meetings, a lot of issues, and almost all done off the radar screen. And then the final thing I just wanted to do, and I don't know why it caught me so much, but maybe it's spring and the joyfulness of spring being here. But on Saturday we had the letter carriers come around and collecting the food, and it just reminds me, in the midst of all the stress and all the challenges that we have out there, and there's a fair amount of anxiety that runs through this country and through the world. That we all have over all kinds of issues: what's happened to the economy, what's happened to terrorism, etc. We also have a parallel track of the most amazing array of opportunities for you to get involved in your community and to make a difference. And they're just, I can't fathom how you can't be joyful and embracing of all of those opportunities when they're all out there. And so when you're discouraged, whatever it is you're feeling that is on that negative side, you don't have to look very far to find something that you can throw your heart and soul into, whether it's the letter carriers thing or it's the Friends of the Library or it just goes on and on and on that's out there. This county is blessed to have so many people involved in those things, and we could solve a lot more of our problems if all of us would just take our commitment up another 10%, another 15%. This year do a little bit more than you did last year in terms of that. Each year this would become a better and better place for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Flynn.
Yes, thank you. I'd ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list. And then I have a couple of comments on the BRAC issue. There's still a major hearing, possibly more than one, to take place. And I'm sure it will take place someplace in California along with other parts of the nation. And that will be a hearing before the national members of BRAC. Those are people appointed by the president. And I do think that we need to make sure we are well prepared for that final presentation in order to get, hopefully, some reduction in the number of people that are on that list. The other issue I will talk about is number 36, which is the Ethics Commission. And maybe next week or the following, I'm going to bring some experiences that I had with the Ethics Commission and talk about those experiences, talk about the way the investigation was conducted, and also talk about how maybe we need to be very careful in the comments that we make when someone is going to go before that commission because of an allegation of a violation. So I will have a complete report and perhaps with some recommendations, and maybe in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Supervisor Parks.
Thank you. Concerning the base closure, I think we need to do all we can as a county to help people if they do need to get repositioned in the job market through our job and career centers, through our workforce investment board, and all the tools available to us, and be very proactive if indeed we do lose some jobs out there. From what I understand, it equated to about 5% military jobs decreased, as well as 10% civilians. So that's something that we need to work towards if in that eventuality. Good news the last week with the governor agreeing to release Proposition 42 funds, which are what we pay at the gas pump, and those funds were always meant for transportation. It's nice to see them going to transportation. It'll mean a significant benefit out in the east end of the county in terms of in my district, Highway 23 has been long waiting to have it widened. A lot of the people in Thousand Oaks now actually have to have a lot of commuters driving on their city streets because people are bypassing the freeway. So I think that's going to be a benefit certainly to people, the residences, as well as the commuters who will not be in as much congestion. So we're looking forward to that. I know we had a measure on the ballot for a sales tax, Measure B, but it's nice to see when we're already giving money to the state government that they apply it to the place where it was always intended. So I'm really happy to see that. I wanted to also mention that the Los Angeles City Council member Greg Smith is looking at something that our board did in terms of trying to eliminate the use of anticoagulant pesticides. Those are the like decon that are used to get rid of rodents that we have found are working their way up the food chain and killing off wildlife, bobcats, and even our mountain lions out here. So that's good news, and hopefully it will continue to spread, trying to reduce the use of those kind of poisons. And then just to give you a fun thing, and with Supervisor Bennett talking about all the opportunities we have to give in our community, and it's nice to see our youth getting involved. And I'd love to see all our high schools have a requirement that you do have to do some kind of community involvement as part of your education. But I went to a Girl Scout Gold Award over the weekend, and it was for 4 young ladies, and what they did was just so inspiring. One of them, for their project, gathered 1,000 new books for the Oak Park Library. Another one gathered sheets and towels for unwed mother home. Another one had a plot in the Oak Park garden that just opened up, grew vegetables and gave it to the homeless. And another found that I think the LA Museum of Natural History, all their displays were in English, whereas a quarter of the people that come there speak Spanish. So her project was to interpret the signs and brochures there so people in Spanish can learn also. So just neat things out there, and then I'd also ask that the board close in honor of the people on this list.
Thank you. I have also a list, ask the board to adjourn in memory of a couple folks in my district. I will be going up to CSAC on Thursday. Of course, we've got now the governor's revised, and we will be discussing that. And although the reports out say that things are looking better, and certainly the Prop 42 was a significant relief for us locally. It will provide us some local funds back to our infrastructure needs. But we have great concern, and we will be reviewing the governor's Live Within Our Means initiative because of concerns that we have that we feel in some respects it flies in the face of the Proposition 1A, and it would create unfunded mandates and impact the counties locally and local governments. So we will be discussing that in detail, and I'll bring back what information I can for the board. One of the things we'll be hearing this morning will be issues related to elections, and of course all things appear that there will be a special election, and the governor is quoted as saying there is always money for a special election. We'll work it out with the counties if there is a special election. So I would like to have the board's antenna up on that, because I would suggest at some point we should send a letter to the governor when it is final that there's a special election, that he not just make a promise, that he fulfill that promise, and that we are at the local level receive the funds for a special election. Another issue of concern in the governor's proposal is that the state share of the in-home supportive service wages and benefits will remain unchanged, and we know that's a significant challenge for us locally and for all county governments who have inherited or stepped into what really is a opportunity to provide good care for folks in their home, but care that should be shared by both the state and local governments fairly. So those are things we'll be talking about at CSAC on Thursday. The other thing I'd like to mention, there was a call for entries sent out for the 2005 Challenge Awards for CSAC, and I know Ted Myers of our Human Services Agency is working to submit some of our model programs that I believe we successfully have at this county, and to urge other departments, if you feel too that you have a great team that's been working with you and you have a model program to submit for a Challenge Award, I'd recommend and encourage you to do so. Don't create something or create a lot of work, but take what successfully we've been doing in this county, I think in many respects, in model programs, and let's get some statewide recognition for it. The last thing I would like to touch on too is the BRAC work of the county task force, and I co-chair that with Ed Summers of the VCETA organization. And our meeting yesterday, although the phrase is we've dodged a bullet is probably somewhat appropriate, there is great concern as to the bases that we have secured and not having the full base or part of the base on the list, but we do have a direct and indirect potential loss of jobs of 4,300 jobs locally. And that could multiply or have a multiplier out to as high as 5,000 jobs. That, as any industry in this county, has an impact to all of us. It has an impact to the small store owner, to the retailer, to the obviously to the families. So the BRAC task force spent a lot of time yesterday talking about work that has yet needs to be done, and that is the analysis of the criteria that was used in the data calls from our bases that put us in a position of these potential job losses, and the issue would be to validate or question that analysis and to really look at what is the direct impact, and to certainly working with RDP 21 to see if in fact there are other opportunities to bring additional deployments or opportunities to our bases that would then backfill that job loss. None of these are going to be easy answers, and we certainly know that the target is that 9-member federal BRAC commission. That's who we're talking to. We have to stick with the main message, which is the military value of our bases, and continue to look at the data and lay it up against the criteria established under the BRAC legislation, and make sure that our military value is still as strong as it was, and/or what do we need to do to address that to the BRAC Commission. So the board, we will be fully engaged in this. I think that there was a cartoon in the local paper that talked about a BRAC quake, and then the success of the building still standing behind the BRAC quake, but the tsunami coming with the job cuts. I think that depicts what we're really faced with, I think, in job loss at the local level, if in fact we aren't as successful in looking at what other opportunities there may be as a result of the shift of the operations from our base. I have information here from the board, for those who may not have received it, and it's just directly off of the military base closure information, and also research, development, acquisition, more detail on the exact portions of the realignment to take place on our base, and the different divisions, and the numbers of jobs that are coming from those divisions that equate to that over 4,000 jobs. I expect Supervisor Michaels already has all of this information, but I will provide it and make it available to anyone else who needs it. So we have we have great communications with Jim Spagnoli, who's working the governor's office for the whole issues related to base realignment and closure, and we have analysis underway from point folks, both with Spagnoli's office and in the governor's office in Washington. We hope to really understand and get into the details of the information, sending a group up to Sacramento on Thursday, 4 representatives from the task force, to meet with the governor's team for base realignment and closure, to really see what information we can cull out from the data that's available, and try and understand what this really means, and what the opportunities may be. So we've got months ahead of us, as everyone probably knows the list. The BRAC commissioners, the federal commissioners, will be visiting bases. There's going to be a lot of discussion to take place nationally on the proposals, and we will be, as a BRAC commission, local BRAC task force, fully intending to go to Washington to make sure we do all of the evaluation necessary to, again, understand what the impacts are, and to develop a strategy to go before the BRAC commission related to our bases. That's probably more than you needed to know, but
just
to let you know, the work is fully underway. Teams are in place. If you're interested, if I just might, the committee structure for the BRAC task force is going to, it certainly has a community outreach and fundraising component, has a media component, has a strategy component, open to folks to participate, welcome folks to participate. We really will need the community to engage with us in the impacts to the job loss and the military value issues related to BRAC, and we'll be calling on the community and holding town hall meetings to really make sure everyone understands the challenge before us and helps us with the solutions.
I think that just demonstrates how much work is involved, and thanks for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, a lot in front of us. Okay, wraps up the board comments, and we have now some time. We can go to our regular agenda, and before our time certain items, and would welcome up, and thank you for being here in the boardroom, those who want to join us under the public comment, board comment. First up will be item 32, the Behavioral Health Department Alcohol and Drug Program County Plan for Proposition 36. Good morning, Ms. Schulman.
Good morning, Chair Long, Supervisors, Mr. Nick. I am here as a part of a apparently shy, not willing to stand up quite yet this morning group of people, as we have worked together over the past 6 or 7 months to address some of the concerns raised by your board and others, the grand jury and ourselves, in relationship to Prop 36. And we are here today to submit the plan that we have all agreed upon together for the implementation of Prop 36 for fiscal year 05-06. As you can see, the board letter was signed by all members of the newly established Oversight Committee. And so certainly good signs that there's been much discussion and much collaboration amongst the various agencies involved in this in our efforts to try to move forward with this really important work. I'll highlight just some of the changes that the 05-06 protocols will carry, which I think will address what some of the concerns have been. First off, we did establish the Oversight Committee, so first and foremost, I think the thing that has helped us to move forward was the establishment of that committee. We've had 3 meetings, but several emails and lots of correspondence in between, and have really worked together to dialogue about what our concerns are and what the solutions to those are. So the biggest significant changes, we are working with the courts right now. We've identified space to actually open up an assessment center location within the courthouse, as had been discussed. So the space has been identified, and we're working on a pilot program with the courts. It'll be for Prop 36, but we're also going to look at using it out of our domestic violence court with Judge White, and seeing if we can set that up as a pilot for ultimately expanding and having behavioral health available to do assessments in the courthouse for all the various courtrooms that end up referring to us. But specifically, we are going to start with Prop 36, and we hope to be back before your board to talk about the details of that. But space has been identified. We're just working out the various protocols right now with the courts to see if we can move that forward. So that'll be a big significant change for us. In relationship to reporting protocols, one of the things that this board letter does is ask that you approve some new fixed-term positions for the district attorney's office. The discussion amongst all of us at Oversight was really around the requirements and the responsibilities for tracking and reporting on clients who unfortunately weren't adhering to the rules of Prop 36. And the desire amongst everybody was that information have free-flowing and sharing, but then it became whose responsibility is it to then do something with that information. And so the decision that was made was that behavioral health, through our treatment providers, will report all positive drug tests, missed appointments, those kinds of things that seem to indicate non-compliance with their terms of probation in being in treatment. And we will report those things to the district attorney's office. And then the district attorney's office will determine that they want to file for a violation of probation. If people are on formal probation, probation is already then doing that. So these are for all the people who are on conditional release. And then these new positions will allow the district attorney's office to take on that additional workload of reviewing these reports and determining the violations. Ultimately, it'll then go back to the court, which is, in essence, the way this process should work. And the judge and the public defender and the DA will have a chance to all talk amongst themselves for each case and decide whether or not that'll ultimately be a violation and how they want to proceed. But this new process of reporting everything and having the DA's office add these additional positions, we think will assist us in the tracking and the greater controls over the groups of clients that unfortunately aren't taking advantage of the program to the extent that we would want them to. So those are the biggest changes. Lots of other little details of things that we've addressed in the board letter, and I'm here to answer questions. And I have most either members of or representatives, because this was the day that most of them were out of town, but representatives from our partnering agencies and oversight here to answer any questions for your board.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Supervisor Flynn.
Proposition 36 was really welcomed by all the people of the state of California practically. And with great enthusiasm, we started a program. And then some problems started to pop up. Let me ask you, as your summary of changes, can you identify for us what the goals are for this Proposition 36 goals, so that when you come back next time, or maybe in a year, we can ask you how close you came to meeting those goals?
I can speak for myself. Our goal is to provide the opportunity to those who seek to turn their lives around through this proposition, to give them quality treatment and to help them move themselves out of the life of drugs and move themselves into recovery and back into the community as restored members of our community. What we have found, and what I think a lot of our dialogue in the Oversight Committee and through the work has been, is that, as would be true with any new law that's written, we didn't really know who the identified clients were necessarily going to be when they started getting referred to us in the program. And unfortunately, a good 2/3 of the clients think that this is a nice way to stay out of jail, but may not think that this is exactly that opportunity to actually really take advantage of treatment and remove themselves from the world of drugs that they're living in. And it's that 2/3 population that has been causing us so much difficulty, because there's a difficulty with some of the ways that the laws are written and some of the ways that we have to manage them in overseeing them in the community, not having them affect the clients that are trying to appropriately move forward. And so these changes, I think, allow us to achieve a goal of really separating out very quickly who's interested in treatment and who's not interested in treatment, and therefore bringing safety as a priority to the community back to the front, because the 2/3 who maybe aren't as interested will much more quickly and much more readily be put back into the justice system, put back into the supports and the things that belong in the criminal justice system, and that'll really give us a chance to take our resources to work with the 1/3 that is truly trying to make a difference. And hopefully with that greater stick in the courthouse, we can make that number higher and make it not just 1/3 who are successful, but continue to work at making that a larger number and get someplace to 2/3. Statewide, 1/3 is the number of people who are succeeding in this program, so we're consistent with that. But I know statewide, we'd all like to see that number grow over time.
Yeah, I would hope, I appreciate your answer. I would hope that we somehow can impact that 2/3 and not just dismiss the 2/3. Otherwise, we're simply losing the whole importance of Proposition 36. The 2/3 are important also.
I agree.
Are there other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Supervisor Michaels.
With the reporting that you've set up, is there any increased burden on the public defender's office? And if so, why was that not considered in this?
Yes, we think that there may be. It was talked about, certainly, and the public defender was definitely able to talk about how he was concerned about actually the increase to the entire court process and the increased work to everybody. It wasn't addressed for lack of funding, in the essence of there isn't any other money that could be swung that way, and so there was a commitment for us to track that, to see how it was going, and I believe that the judge felt that he could manage it in a way that hopefully wouldn't put that extra burden. There was discussion. There are some legislations working to revise Prop 36, and if that does come out, there's the sense that there may be some more money, and there was a discussion that the public defender would be our first on the list if that more money came forward, to look at how we needed to help them as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the discussion happened, so.
Good morning.
Good morning. Madam Chair, members, Greg Totten from the District Attorney's Office. I wanted to respond to your question because I think it's a very valid one. I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the public defender, but both the District Attorney and the public defender have, since really the inception of Proposition 36, have dedicated a attorney from each of our respective offices to appear in court and handle Proposition 36 matters. The reason that you have before you a request for positions for the DA's office and not the public defender's office is because we are essentially, as Ms. Schulman pointed out, we are taking on a new responsibility that was previously handled by behavioral health. And so it is a new burden, it is a new responsibility, it is independent of the obligation to appear in court. It's an obligation to review all of the different violations that occur in the treatment process and assess whether or not a violation of probation needs to be lodged with the court.
Oh, I fully understand, and I'm not opposed. I just wanted to make sure that there was some consideration, because anytime, I mean, it's supposed to be a balanced system, and if you're doing your job, then the public defender has a job to do, and so we just have to keep in mind how, you know, the different departments are affected by this, and I'm supportive. It's not that. It's just that concern that this may become, like all other propositions, a bigger burden than anybody planned on. Good idea, but implementation is sometimes difficult. So thank you, Greg. The Honorable Mr. Todd. Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor Parks.
One of my concerns with the program is, you know, it's designed to, particularly people who are addicts and dealing with drugs, to get them off drugs. And one of my concerns is the number of times that individuals in this program are tested. I know we had a successful graduate of the program that I appointed to the Alcohol and Drug Advisory Committee, and I believe he indicated he was only tested once during that whole period of going through the program. So that's one of my questions, because I know that it can be detrimental to you know, sessions where you're working with several people at one time. If someone's still using it, it can hurt the entire program that you're working with. As I look at some of the protocol changes now, previously 2 to 5 positive tests were allowed within the system. So seeing that crack down to you have 1 positive test and you're non-compliant, I think that's beneficial, and being able to have, obviously, the personnel available to address those who are non-compliant is essential. But I truly think you need to have a tighter program where people can't have multiple positive tests, A, and B, that they are tested multiple times.
One of the other changes that we implemented to try to deal with the shortage of testing a little bit was that the testing will be random. And so, and the protocols now identify an average of 1 time a week random testing for a certain level, more often for some of the more higher levels. So there was lots of discussion around that. I wish I could say that there was a good answer. The reality is that we're not funded for the amount of testing that we need to do. And so we've taken the amount. We're not allowed to use Prop 36 money for testing. We're given a small allocation out of state ADP, and that's the only money that we have, and we stretch it as far as we can. What we have done in the protocol, and one of the reporting elements that we will include in our 90-day reports on clients so that then we can review it, is we've said to the providers, if you have somebody who you think you need to test more often, you think something's going on and more tests are necessary, you have the freedom to do that. And we'll work with you down the road to figure out, in that case, what we may need to do to manage that. And we'll start looking at, are we testing more often with some clients that are showing signs that it needs to be? Are we using that protocol properly, and try to adjust accordingly? Maybe another treatment provider didn't need to test as much, and we can switch funding around. So we're aware of the limited amount of testing that's available to us, and trying to put some protocols in place that will allow us to use it more effectively.
And while your amount of non-compliance has gone up, I don't see that as a failure in the program, but actually more scrutiny, and I think that's important to have. And if you are lacking funds to sufficiently test addicts and finding that they're positive, we need to do something about that. So I would like to get some information about, you know, what it will take to get that optimal amount of testing done, but I am glad to see that we are now going to crack down. We're not going to allow 2 to 5 positive tests before something happens. Thank you.
Supervisor Flynn?
Yes, you talked about testing. The proposition was passed by the people of the state of California, right?
Yes.
And there are people in Sacramento, I'm sure, staff people who develop the rules and regulations. And can we not try to impact those by getting some money into from Prop 36 for testing? Have you tried that?
Well, there's been a lot of efforts legislatively. Like I said, there's a couple legislations that are currently being done that the proponents and the opponents of the proposition came together, tried to put some new rules and regs into it, and added some additional funding into it. I'm not sure yet if that additional funding will also lead towards additional drug testing funding. I think that those discussions are still occurring, so we'll certainly add our voice to that.
When you discover a problem like that, you should bring the problem to the board so that the board can give some direction on what to do about that problem. Mm-hmm. And yet, I haven't heard about that yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to certainly thank the team, one, for coming together. I was pleased to see the joint signatures on this because I know that there have been some push and pull. But I think it is very important to have the Oversight Committee responding to both the board's concerns and the grand jury's concerns with that. I am very pleased that the courts have found a space because we knew that was one of the weaknesses in the system was to, once someone gets identified, they need to immediately get into assessment. They walk out onto the street, we lose them. So by having that insight in place will be appreciated, and to thank the courts for working with us on that. I know testing is still a challenge, and funding for that has always been a deficit of that proposition. And we have had legislative efforts, I think, and we can't give up on them to continue to identify that. And every report we send to the state that says there's still this deficit, and it's an unfunded part of the proposition. What's the board's pleasure?
I'd like to second that, but I would also ask that we incorporate in the motion that we get back at budget time what is the amount that you think is optimal that is needed so that we can do sufficient testing to the degree that is needed.
Okay.
If the main motion, is that acceptable? Thank you.
Motion and a second. Any objection to the motion? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. And if I could, I want to thank all the members of the Oversight Committee and their being here today.
Thank them all.
All of the work that has gone into this together. So
absolutely. We appreciate the collaboration.
I'd like to do the same thing, which is...
Mr. Clayman? Go ahead.
I'd like to do the same thing, which is thank all the members of the committee. It's interagency cooperation, like interdepartment cooperation like this is always challenging, and I think everybody's got to put extra effort into that, and I just really appreciate the fact that people are continuing to come together and try to make this work. So thank you.
Mr. Clayman, did you wish to say anything? Your name was, not your name, but your agency.
Sorry, I tried to arrive right on time, and you started a little bit earlier, so I did come in a little bit late. I do want to stress the collaboration part, and I wanted to make a little plug because the first chair of the Operations Committee was a member of the Public Defender's Office, Chief Public Defender Neil Quinn, who will be retiring. And I hope that was a tribute to the collaborative part of the program. And I hope even with some of the problems that have occurred, it's recognized there have been great successes, and we need to build on those successes. And I agree there will be some arguments here and there, which I think is sometimes healthy for the process, but I think we're going to move ahead, and the will of the people to have drug treatment is going to be borne out as we move forward in the future. So thank you for your support.
And thank you. Thank you, all of the oversight. We appreciate your good work. And now, board, we have an opportunity to celebrate. And we're going to start out with a celebration. And it's Supervisor Bennett, your lead, sir.
Thank you very much. We have some special guests here wearing their blue T-shirts. here in the room this morning for us, and appreciate you coming down. And I'm sure it breaks your heart that you're not in school today for this at this point in time. But this is a little bit different than normal presentations. You know, we oftentimes have the state champions or the CIF champions in football or soccer or cross country at the high school level. But this is a presentation honoring Topa Topa's Odyssey of the Mind team. It's, I think, just a very different kind of activity for students to be involved in. Their sixth grade teacher and team coach Sarah Garrett is here, and she's here with her team, who we're going to award competitions to, one of whom is illustrious reporter from the Times, daughter, from Kay Salett, and they won the regional competition here in Southern California, and then traveled to Visalia for the state competition, where they finished sixth in the state in the Odyssey of the Mind competition. Wow. And it is so difficult for me to try to explain this verbally that they have created a videotape, and so we just have a few-minute videotape for you to understand what is an Odyssey of the Mind competition. So, Maestro, if you will, let it roll.
Yeah. This team will use 3 methods of communication to tell us the same story. So we can hear them now. Please turn off your cell phones and pagers.
Okay, hold on, guys.
You have like 5 minutes to turn off your pages.
We are the Falcons, the Topa Topa Falcons. You ask us if we're ready, we say, oh yeah!
Good, are you ready?
Yeah!
Team, your time begins now.
I might interject, they have to do creative things to solve problems. That's what the Odyssey of the Mind thing is. They creatively solve problems, working together. And obviously in a very short period of time, we had to put their creative solution out there. If you want to come up, Ms. Garrett, and narrate any part of this, feel free, so that we can understand what's going on. That would be helpful. That might be helpful.
Unaware of the fact that it was 12 hours, 35 minutes, and 17 seconds since you lost to a banana.
Can we turn the volume up,
She doesn't get
please?
soon, she'll go into banana starvation. It's been 12 hours, 35 minutes, 17, now 18 seconds since I had a banana. I'll go get one. Zoe here is not her bananas today, because she's eaten the last bananas of the season, which means that she won't get any more until next year. I'll go watch some TV to keep my mind off bananas! No, not this. That's for old people. No, not today. What about this? This is a talk show, just so you know. We are getting ready, so let's go, go, go. I'm Cheddarella. I'm Cheddar. And I'm Swiss. We are cheesy and kind of greasy. And now we'd like to introduce our theme. Bananas, 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 bananas. Bananas, bananas, and how you can find them. What a coincidence! Hello and welcome to the Super Duper Talk Show. Today's theme is bananas, as you heard from the cheesy talk show singers. We know you love them, give them a big round of applause! Today, as this first season, spring right now, we'll be talking about the upcoming shortage of avocado. We'll be talking about which season bananas grow in. So, without further ado, please welcome Ramona, the Tomato Princess. And Danielle, from the present. And tomorrow the next day, from the future. We know what's going to happen to you in the future. Right now, we'll be going to play for Ramona in spring. So everybody else, scream up! Dang it. Here we are in the year 1119, and Ramona, the beautiful 19th princess. Ramona, please tell your tale. My path is be that I have been looking in my grandfather's trunk, my break from cooking. this long lost poem that I have to read. May half be of some use to you. I shall read thy poem in very high toast, that it shall free from thy ropes, which hold you from finding bananas, and ye be permitted to go on a banana bonanza. In thy season he discovered to behold the mighty ghost. Ye of bananas hath nae sprouts, in thy season first in thy route. When they hath a reason to pout, for ye shall soon discover what season bananas hath to be about. Whoa! Translation! For all you wonderful viewers out there that are wondering, don't switch back with Flintstones. I'll tell you what she said in plain English right here. She said that she found a poem in her grandfather's trunk, she read it, and it said the bananas don't grow in spring. Bye! Please welcome Lindsay and Al, Vice President. So Lindsay, where's your friend? I have no idea. I'll call him.
Hello?
Yeah, we were supposed to be here at the talk show.
Okay, I'll be right there.
No, wait, I'll come get you.
No, I'm gonna be right there. So where are you?
I came to come get you, and, well, I guess I got kind of sidetracked. I found this poem, and there's a necklace. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, I guess so.
It's been passed around my family for generations, and it goes like this. If you go to the store in fall, you won't find any bananas at all. It's written in Hebrew, and it kind of loses me in the translation. So, what do you think? I think that means the bananas obviously don't grow this fall, so we have to say goodbye now and thank you for being Next, please welcome Mom and the next day from the future. So, what are you doing? We're talking on our T-mail. It's kind of like futuristic incidentally. We think the other person sees it, and they respond by thinking. Okay, but why are you getting so close together? Because every step we take is like a million light years away. So we will begin thinking, and you will begin watching. Hey, the next day, guess what? I found a new T-mail by Transmail the other day. Well, what did it say? I showed it to my mom. She said it's been passed down in my family for generations. It was a poem. It said, winter beholds, no bananas I'm told, every season except summer, bananas grow old. Spring, fall, and winter lack a delicious bowl.
I think without the volume, we might go ahead and turn to comments from the teacher. Do you want to try to explain what's going on there, since we've lost that volume at this point in time? Right? Don't be shy. Come on, you've just been on videotape here.
How easy is that? So now we know bananas grow in summer. Let's thank all the people that helped us along the way.
And if we could turn the volume down up there.
So then we get to bananas, and everybody was happily ever after.
Thank you for inviting us here today. It is a great honor. This is the
If you could just hold 1 second, they're going to turn the volume down.
When you see bananas, yellow here, I get excited! Thank you for watching the Super Duper Talk Show. Next week, we'll be talking about the upcoming shortage of avocado peels for the diet of gazelles who live in the Arctic. Till then, goodbye. Snacks are really starting to annoy me. I want to get them back to their own time.
I hope you'll explain to us what we just saw. Great. Thank you. Well, they're trying to turn it off now. There you go. All right. You're out.
Thank you for inviting us here today. It is a great honor. This is the Odyssey of the Mind team from Topa Topa Elementary School Get the Message Problem Solvers. This team consists of Taylor Young, Austin Reniker, Elizabeth Talley, Enrique Suarez, Faith Curtis, Barbara Horn-Petersdorf, and Tyler Brown. This team won first place at Los Angeles Regional Finals held in Pasadena on Saturday, February 26, 2005. They advanced to the California State Finals held in Visalia, California on April 9, 2005. They won 6th place at state finals and were also awarded the highest award at the competition, the Omer Award.
Omer's Award is named for the Odyssey of the
Try to
Mind
be
raccoon
a little
mascot.
closer to the microphone, please. We're dying to hear after the volume. Pull that microphone up so it's closer to your mouth. There you go.
Omer's Award is named for the Odyssey of the Mind raccoon mascot, Omer, in recognition of individuals or teams who demonstrate outstanding sportsmanship, exemplary behavior, or exceptional talent. We won this award because we were extremely supportive of our team members in a time of crisis.
Our problem was called Get the Message, and it was worth 200 points. The team's problem is to create and present a performance that includes an original story that is told 3 times, each through a different method of communication. The team will select a primitive method of communication and an evolved method from a list, and will create an original futuristic method. The team will also create visual signals to indicate when each method of communication is in use. The signals will show changes in the process of the Earth system. The performance will include a narrator or host and a stage set.
Style is when a team chooses what they want to be judged. In our case, our style was our TV, our jetpack, and our mezuzah necklace. We chose the TV because one of our team members made a remote control that actually made noise and an ingenious way of turning channels. We chose the jetpack because we used microchips and other futuristic materials. The mezuzah necklace was creative because it belongs to the Jewish religion. The way we made it look like it was an antique. As you can see, we did very well on our style.
In competition, every team solves a spontaneous problem. This part of the competition is called spontaneous because teams don't know what they have to do until they enter the competition room. Solving spontaneous problems teaches students to think on their feet. There are 3 different types of spontaneous problems: verbal, hands-on, or verbal, hands-on together. We solve a verbal problem at state.
Okay, you guys gonna do your thing?
I know we've had some pictures taken already, but we'd like to call each student up, and we'd like to have you come up also. And we'll take one more picture up here. And so Elizabeth Halley, if you'd come up, please. Get your certificate. Yeah, come on up also. Congratulations. Stay right here for a picture. All right. And Austin Reneker. Austin here? Yeah, there we go. Come on up. Enrique Juarez. And Taylor Young. Barbara Horn Petersdorf. Whose mother, school board member in Ojai Unified, is here today. Tyler Brown. Faith Curtis. And then for the teacher who I'm sure didn't have anything to do with this, Sarah Garrett.
It's nice to see Kay's new assignment in the boardroom as mother and director.
It's a great picture. Yeah. Congratulations.
Good job.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor Bennett, for bringing this wonderful performance and group to the boardroom. We appreciate you coming in this morning. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, board members, now we'll do item 23, and I've asked Supervisor Michaels to present this, and it's to have the Peace Officers Memorial Week recognized.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to call down the people that I believe are here, and then I will read a couple of excerpts from the resolution and bring it down. As everyone knows, and if you were in the boardroom this morning, our moment of affirmation was for our peace officers who have died in the line of duty and for our military who have died in the line of duty in honor of both of these resolutions that are being given today. It's one of those things you can never express adequately in words, and that is the thank yous, the heartfelt thank yous to those people who do their duty every day, and the agony and the pain in your heart when we lose one of those. But they've done their duty, and in today's world, we're expected to know what we want to do and when we do it to do it well. And I would say here in Ventura County, we have the best of the best. Not only our law enforcement people that this honors, but also our military family that we cherish so much. And we did have a very long discussion earlier about the impacts of the BRAC process. But thank you all. There's no better word, and there's no other way to say it than thank you for what you do. With us today for the Peace Officers Memorial is Mike, if I missed this, Marastika? Did I do okay, Mike? President of the Peace Officers Association of Ventura County. We have with us Leslie O'Brien, her husband, Officer Jim O'Brien, lost his life in the line of duty in 1993. Commander Scott Whitney. Scott's not here. Scott was to be here. His wife, Senior Deputy Leslie Whitney, lost her life in the line of duty in 1998. Also, I have listed Lori Cole Owens. Did Lori make it? Her husband, Mike Cole, lost his life in the line of duty while serving in El Dorado, Colorado, with Ventura County 10 years ago. So we thank you for being here. And I'd like to read a little bit of this resolution, and then I will ask each of you if you would like to say something, and I'll bring the resolution down. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, police officers play an essential role in Ventura County safeguarding the rights and freedoms of our citizens. The members of our law enforcement agencies of Ventura County provide a vital public service to our community. National Police Week provides an opportunity for citizens to understand and to honor the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of the peace officers. National Peace Officer Week provides an opportunity for members of our law enforcement agencies to recognize and honor their role to serve the people by safeguarding life and property and by protecting them against violence and disorder. At 10 a.m. on May 19th, 2005, in front of the Ventura County Government Center's Peace Officer Memorial Site, there will be a Peace Officer Memorial Service held in honor of the courageous police officers that have lost their lives in the line of duty while serving the residents of Ventura County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors takes great pleasure in proclaiming May 15th through 21 Peace Officers Memorial Week. And we invite all Ventura County residents to join us in honoring the peace officers of Ventura County for preserving the safety and security of our citizens. Be it further resolved that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors call upon its residents to observe Sunday, May 15th, 2005 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of those fallen officers. You know, it only takes a half a minute when you see a police officer, a law enforcement personnel somewhere in the county. If it's a grocery store, you know, and you know they're a police officer, walk up and say thank you. Understand what these people do day in and day out, the women and men in uniform, and their spouses and families. And it's a changing world because it used to be that the spouses were all female, and that's not true any longer. And all spouses make a great sacrifice so that their members can serve. So when you see somebody out there, say thank you. Don't growl at them and don't look away like they're going to do something. Walk up and say thanks. I think they would appreciate it. And now, if I might, if you would like to say a few words, I'll bring this down.
Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate the proclamation on behalf of the Peace Officers Association of Ventura County. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to Leslie O'Brien and Lori Cole Owens for being here with me today. The three of us are deeply involved in the Oxnard Peace Officers Memorial Scholarship. After Mike lost his life in El Dorado County, Mike served with the Oxnard Police Department for 10 years and moved to El Dorado County, and a few months after that was killed responding to a call in a traffic collision. Lori helped establish the Mike Cole Memorial Scholarship, which benefits students in the Oxnard Union High School District. We have since added the Jim Jensen Memorial Scholarship and the Jim O'Brien Memorial Scholarship, and for 12 years now we've given over $150,000 to deserving high school students for their college future. And I want to acknowledge all the work that Lori and Leslie have done to keep that scholarship in the memory of their spouses. And I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for acknowledging Peace Officers Memorial Week.
No, thank you.
Thank you for all your words.
Thank you. And again, the public is welcome to join the memorial service out in front of the Government Center this week and join in this recognition. Thank you for coming in, and thank you, Supervisor Michaels. Next, I have the pleasure of presenting a resolution proclaiming National Public Works Week, and I'd like to invite Ron Coons down, our Director of our Public Works Agency, and Alex. And I see we've got the team here from the Public Works Department. I see Butch Britt and Jeff Pratt and Reddy Pacala and many, many others, our wonderful, outstanding county employees who have had a very tough first part of the year.
Yeah, the men and women of our agency many of them are here as representatives, and each year we have a selected department head prepare a short presentation. So okay. Alec is in the box this day, so Alec, would you?
That would be great.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, Supervisors, and Mr. Cole, I'm Alec Pringle of the Public Works Agency, and it's my pleasure this week, on behalf of Mr. Coons and the Public Works Agency, to be part of the celebration of the National Public Works Week at the county. This year's theme is Public Works is Everywhere You Look. Each year, as a part of the county's celebration, we also recognize individuals in the Public Works Agency who typify the excellence of service, dedication we strive to maintain and improve upon. Certainly this past year, with the extraordinary efforts of agency staff in responding to the storm-related damages, it's especially difficult to single out individuals when so much of what was accomplished has truly been a team effort. Nevertheless, there's no better way to illustrate that Public Works is everywhere you look than acknowledging the accomplishments and dedication of the individuals who've been selected as this year's honorees. Glenn DeRossett, Engineer 4 of the Transportation Department, is a 17-year veteran of the agency. Whether it was repairing Balcom Canyon Road from landslides, reopening an important thoroughfare, inspecting media barrier work on Victoria Avenue to enhance public safety, or monitoring public pavement overlays at night to minimize traffic impacts, or responding to the storm damage repairs of several key roads on an emergency basis, including Wheeler Canyon and Sunset Street, Glenn has been everywhere there is or used to be a road. Glenn's enthusiasm, dedication to getting the job done, and attention to the details has made him a key team player. Our second honoree is Karen Mendoza, who's been with the county family for 25 years and is currently a Survey Engineer 2 in the Watershed Protection District. Her creativity and technical savvy has earned her the title of Queen of PowerPoint for the agency.
Very good.
She created and maintains the district's right-of-way GIS coverage, seamlessly integrating survey data into GIS layers. This is essential data for all aspects of planning, design, construction, and maintenance activities for the Watershed Protection District. She also helps manage the $11 million a year Benefit Assessment District programs, which provides the revenues to make possible the maintenance of flood control infrastructure, the countywide stormwater programs, and response to disaster recovery. Karen has shown exceptional skill in managing these important programs for the district. Don Miller joined the agency in 1981 and has worked his way up the ranks through lead worker and supervisory positions to wastewater service worker 4. He works in operations, production, and customer service of the Water and Sanitation Department, providing responsive and critical advice to our systems operations. An accomplished journeyman in the operation and maintenance of wells, pump stations, and reservoirs, he's been an essential part of the department's performance. In emergencies such as the firestorms of October 2003 or the recent winter storms and flooding, the demands placed on water supply, the protection and wastewater systems is significant and requires constant monitoring and immediate response to problems. Don's continual availability, rapid troubleshooting, and advice to staff on systems operation has helped Water and Sanitation maintain reliable utility services to the community. John Pine is being honored by the Engineering Services Department for his service as a Senior Public Works Inspector. He is currently responsible for monitoring over 300 projects countywide to ensure compliance with county development standards. Besides inspecting grading activities for individual homeowners and large tract developments, he also checks compliance on more unusual projects, such as on movie set construction in the county and the construction of the Air Force One hangar at the Ronald Reagan Library. Traveling all over the county and logging over 15,000 miles per year inspecting projects, John is certainly the face of Public Works everywhere you look. He has excellent customer service skills, maintains a high standard of technical knowledge, and has demonstrated outstanding dedication to the job. Lucy Taylor is our fifth honoree. She joined the county in 1989 and is the Supervising Accounting Officer 3 for the agency's Central Services Department. The ability of all of our honorees to get their jobs done is in no small part due to the work of Lucy in managing the accounting and fiscal activities of Transportation Road Fund and the Watershed Protection District, valued at $143 million, and cash receipts for the entire agency. She also oversees routine audits as well as OES FEMA audits resulting from disasters, including the preparation of financial data from our most recent disasters. Lucy's cheerful and conscientious attitude and excellent working relationships with others is an outstanding example of the public service image we strive to maintain. At the core of these honorees' accomplishments is a belief that in their own way they can make this community a better place to live. They represent what we believe is the best of what public service and public works service has to offer. I think they'd also acknowledge the great cast they have behind them. Before I introduce the honorees, we'd like to acknowledge the efforts of the agency during the last trying months recovering from the storms. Those representatives from the Watershed Protection District would stand up, please. there any here today?
They're standing
They're all
up.
standing already.
Stand up.
Thank you. As well as the Transportation Department, who obviously was greatly involved in all the road work, Water and Sanitation Department, keeping the systems running, and support from Engineering Services and Central Services. If those people aren't standing, please stand.
Everybody stand up.
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the work of my Public Works Committee that put all this together for us, listed here. And, of course, our honorees, Glenn DeRosset, Karen Mendoza, Don Miller, John Pine, and Lucy Taylor, if they'd please stand up.
Would they please come to the front?
And please come to the front.
If you'd please stay, and I'm going to present this proclamation recognizing National Public Works Week, May 15th through the 21st. You've certainly given us a wonderful overview of what you all do 24/7 in this county for all of the residents of Ventura County. And I'm just going to pull out some words from the proclamation, such as efficient operations, quality and effectiveness, efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel and staff in public works, and to recognize and call upon the residents in our county and our civic organizations to appreciate each and every day the work that you do for the county, acknowledging your contributions through the public works professionals every day to make sure that we live in a quality environment where we feel safe and healthy and comfortable because of all of your dedication and commitment to our county and our residents. And I'll step down to present this, and I'm going to present it to you all. And board members, some comments.
We had, I think, a great series in the newspaper recently about how much we take our public works infrastructure for granted, and I just want you to know that people working on the board don't take it for granted and don't take the people in the Public Works Department for granted. So thank you very much. It's great that we have this annual celebration.
Yeah, I think that, I think I said this last year, maybe it was the year before, when we honored the Public Works personnel, and that is, the old joke about, it takes 9 people to do a job in government. Most of them are leaning on the shovel and the other one is eating. Those days are gone. The people who work for the citizens of Ventura County and the Public Works Department have had a very challenging time this year, as you all know, and to a person, they did their jobs, they did them efficiently, they did them on time, and they did them without at least too much grumbling. We all grumble, every one of us grumbles, but everyone was there, and everybody was working overtime and exhausted at times trying to protect property here in the county and to repair roads so people could move around the county. And I'd like to just echo what Supervisor Bennett said, and that is, no matter who takes public works for granted, this board doesn't, and we greatly appreciate the quality of the personnel that we have to serve the citizens here in this county. So thank you.
I'm going to make a couple of comments. I want to thank the people from Public Works. You really do an excellent job. So many things that you do the public never sees, like some of those debris basins, for example, but they really help out tremendously. And I'm always happy to see you working in my district, especially with the sewering of El Rio, which is a very difficult job when you're replacing septic tanks and you're digging down into a community that's been there for a long time. It's hard work. So I want to thank those of you for that. And all of you. Butch is back there. I really appreciate the work that he does. One time I asked him to put some speed humps down on Silver Strand Beach, and he talked with me a little bit about it. Then I went out, it was short on money. I went out and got some asphalt and all the materials that go into speed bumps. But he said, John, you know, you have to have the support of the community in order to do this. So I didn't want to, I dropped it right there. I know there'd be 50% against it. Thank you so much for your work.
I also want to chime in just to say we certainly had a major episode where people didn't have much time to do things, and we certainly are underfunded in terms of resources, and it really comes down to the skill levels and the dedication of staff that we really appreciate to get the work done. So thank you.
And Alex, you have certificates?
It's almost like they arranged these awards by height or something. This would be perfect.
Ron smiled now.
I want to thank all the board for this proclamation, and the men and women of our agency are very proud to be here and do the work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of the employees. Thank you so much. I'm going to just stay here to do our next proclamation, and I know that as Captain Steve Wershing has sat here to watch our acknowledgement of Public Works and our CBs, they can relate. I'd like to invite you down, Captain, with the team you've brought. We've invited Captain Wershing and Public Affairs Officer Linda Wadley and Master Chief Phil Devine to celebrate and recognize our 19th annual CB Days. And the CB Days are kicking off this weekend, and this is to recognize what a wonderful, wonderful resource we have in our county through our military partners, and specifically our United States Naval Construction Battalion CBs. They were recruited during World War II from the ranks of civilian construction trades and placed in the Navy's Civil Engineer Corps, organized into special units to accommodate amphibious or mobile battalions around the world for more than 60 years. The CBs have earned the title Goodwill Ambassadors while working in underdeveloped countries, as well as those stricken with natural disasters at home and abroad. They are deployed around the world in support of the global war on terrorism. Our U.S. Navy CBs are providing combat construction support to the U.S. Marine Corps and the Navy SEALs in Iraq and Afghanistan, and are supporting other missions in Kuwait, the Horn of Africa, and a number of locations throughout the Pacific Theater. In the midst of great accomplishments and commitment, the CBs maintain their portside contacts through their 19th annual CB Days by inviting the community aboard for a first-hand look at the Navy's construction engineers as they present a full-dress military parade, displays and demonstrations, ship tours, musical entertainment. It's really just a great, fun activity for the entire family to come out to our CB base and just enjoy what we have in both the partnership and the resources here in our county. So it's a pleasure on behalf of the board to commend the United States CBs at Naval Base Ventura County for their dedication to country and service and to the community, and to share in this annual event, extending congratulations to the command staff for their continued leadership in Ventura County. And again, inviting Captain Wershing up to receive this, and please introduce who you've brought with you today. Captain, thank you so much. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. I would very quickly like to do three things. First off is thank you all. The Construction Battalion Center at Port Hueneme is the home of the Pacific CBs, and happy to say it looks like we'll continue to be the home of the Pacific CBs. And it couldn't be a better home. The county and all the residents treat our CBs very well and take very good care of us, and we're very grateful for that. and so thank you so much. Secondly, I'd like to introduce a few CVs that I brought with me, pretty significant CVs, and I think represent and epitomize what our CVs are today. The first one is CE3 Kevin Appleby, and Kevin is from Miami, Florida, and recently returned from a deployment in Iraq where he was assisted and was part of a crew that hardened facilities and built hardened facilities for the Marine Corps. As you know, that's a pretty dangerous place, and his work contributed greatly to the safety of our Marines and Seabees. Second is CE2 Mindy McMahon, and Pet Officer McMahon was greatly involved in restoring the electrical infrastructure in a number of places throughout Iraq. She also helped plan and repair their electric distribution system. And Pet Officer McMahon was recently recognized nationally by the Navy, the National Navy League, for her inspirational leadership. And finally, I've got UT1 Sean Stewart. And Petty Officer Stewart supervised a project to restore water to Camp Fallujah, which I'm sure you all have heard of. Restored water to support 7,000 people there. He also was involved in a project at a remote pump house in Iraq that came under attack while they were working out there. He was instrumental in directing fire and communications to fend off the attack by the Iraqi insurgents. And finally, Officer Stewart was involved in the project after Fallujah was taken back by the Marine Corps. He led a team of Seabees that went in and cleaned up and dewatered Fallujah. There was a tremendous amount of damage caused in the attack, and he led a team that went in there and helped clean it up. Finally, Pet Officer Stewart was also recognized nationally by the Society of American Military Engineers with the Marvin Shields Award for his work. And the last thing I'd like to do is just invite everyone out to CB Days. We've got a great event. You mentioned a lot. Obviously, our feature is our full dress parade on Saturday morning. It's 11 o'clock. Our guest speaker this year is Major General Kremlich. And General Kremlich was the commander of the 1st FSSG in Iraq, and he just recently returned. And the Seabees and we're supporting his Marines over there. We have 2 ships coming in. We've got the USS Ogden, which comes in on Friday, and the USS Decatur, which got in yesterday. And, of course, I know the ship's tours are always a great attraction, and people really enjoy that. They will be offering tours all weekend. So.
Madam Chair, if I might, you can come up. Captain Worshing, this is a present for you and for your wife. We felt that the Queen Bee really needed a resolution all of her own, and that came from Military Appreciation Week a couple weeks ago. But I think it's important, Supervisor Bennett said something to me, pardon me, a minute ago, that is so obvious, and yet probably no one these days is paying attention, and that is the demonstration of our diversity in our military personnel in today's world, and the fact that a young woman is an engineer and has been given national awards, I think is just indicative of the quality of the volunteer service. And certainly, you know, we've said millions of times how proud we are of each and every one of the military members who are in our Ventura County family, whether you're passing through for a short time, coming back for the 3rd or 4th time, and hopefully loving the county and eventually retiring here. But just a heartfelt thank you for all that you do, and I'm glad you came back from that service, and I hope you get to stay home for a while, and I hope that God keeps you all safe. Thank you. We do recruit, by the way, from
Okay, Board, I'm going to flip the next two items because I just think it makes sense, and that is to have our Human Services Agency give us the Day in the Life of Adult Protective Services presentation first, and then we'll do the proclamation that recognizes our Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Awareness Month. So if I could, I'd like to invite up, we did complete all the 9:30, our 10, oh, we have a second hearing. Well, hold on a minute. Hold on just a minute. I'm sorry. I didn't pick up on that. Item 26 is an ordinance establishing county responsibility for fire prevention suppression, and it is a second hearing.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Seeing no objection, so ordered, and I thank you. Now, Mr. Myers, are you up? We'll move ahead with the two items. Thank you so much.
Well, it's our pleasure to present this, A Day in Life in Adult Protective Services. We have Elder and Dependent Abuse Month, which is not something to celebrate, but it's something to bring to our awareness. And Judy Rivera has a few things to say and to introduce our lead on this project, to Kathy Slay-Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Nicole. I wanted to recognize a couple of community partners who are also here with us today. We have Victoria Jump. Hi, Victoria, from the agency area agency on housing. Gosh, where did that come from? It's a habit from CalWorks. That's what it is. It's a habit. We have Shirley Hayden, Deputy District Attorney, who was invited to join us today, but I understood she was in court earlier this morning. And we have Sylvia Berdardi, who is a supervisor from the District Attorney Victim Services Office as well. I'd like to recognize all of these individuals because it certainly takes the work of all of us together to impact elder and dependent adult abuse here in this county. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce Kathy Slay-Wagner, who is a program administrator for our department, and she's going to present the Day in the Life PowerPoint.
Thank you. And good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, John Nickel. I'm Kathy Slay-Wagner, your Adult Protective Services Program Administrator. And I did want to quickly introduce one of our other partners that did make it today, and that's our public health nurse, Susan Loring. Stand up. What is APS? APS stands for Adult Protective Services. Each California county provided information on reports received on one day. We picked March 5th, 2004. It was a Friday, and it was a full moon. And in social services, that often provides for a very hectic day. Ventura County received 22 reports that day. Why a Day in a Life project? We wanted to put a face on APS. What type of reports we get, who are the clients, and the complex issues that we face. This report is based on one day, and it was a slow day for California. Ventura County averages 150 reports per month. The National Center for Elder Abuse estimates that only 1 in 14 instances of abuse are actually reported. So on that day in California, that meant another 2,000 plus reports should have been received. For Ventura County, 286 incidents were not reported on that one day. Who is considered elderly and a dependent adult? The state of California defines an elderly person as someone who's age 65 or older. A dependent adult is someone who's going to be 18 to 64 and has a limitation that prevents them from being able to advocate for themselves. This could be a mental illness, this could be developmental, or it could be a physical limitation. Most of our reports involve elders. So what is abuse? We have abandonment, abduction, financial, isolation, mental suffering, neglect, physical abuse, including sexual, and self-neglect. let's take a minute to discuss self-neglect. Self-neglect has several aspects. Of the reports received on March 5th, 34% of the elders were neglecting their own medical care. This could be misuse of medication or untreated medical conditions. 31% of the reports involved health and safety hazards. So this is going to be the pack rat with so much clutter and debris in their home that they're unable to navigate safely through their home. This could be faulty plumbing that's never repaired, or an elder that lives with like 24 cats. In Ventura County, on that day, we received a report of a 68-year-old woman diagnosed with renal failure. She's on dialysis 3 times a week. Her daughter-in-law takes her money. We have financial abuse. Her daughter-in-law yells at her. We have mental suffering. Her daughter-in-law restricts her movement in her home and will not allow visitors. We have isolation. That's 1 report and 3 types of abuse. On March 5th, neglect from others was 31%. Caretakers leaving the elder or dependent adult alone, not providing care or providing improper care. 24% of the reports received on the day were financial abuse. Life savings are often depleted by caretakers and family members. Of the 22 reports received in Ventura County that day, 9 involved at least financial abuse. On March 5th in Ventura County, an 80-year-old female diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease was left alone. Her husband came home drunk. He's unable to take care of himself or her. We have neglect and self-neglect. Who are our perpetrators? On this day, 42% were family members, 16% caretakers. That's over half. 58% are people in a position of trust and charged with taking care of our elders. Statewide, the average age was 75. Last year in Ventura County, the average age was 71. Statewide, 37% of the victims are 80 and older. This data highlights a growing demographic population. They're getting older and they're becoming easy targets for abuse. 64% of the victims had major medical issues. Examples would be cancer, dementia, Parkinson's disease. Who are our reporters? These are the people that actually pick up the phone and call in the abuse. On this day, healthcare providers and social workers who are mandated by the state based on their employment called in reports, for a total of 86. To highlight the findings, 63% of the elderly victims are female. 53% are described as exhibiting some degree of cognitive impairment. Abuse by others, 31% suffered neglect, and 24% experienced financial abuse. That's going to be our scams, the Canadian lottery, door-to-door sales, unsolicited contractors. Our elders and dependent adults face complex issues. One agency cannot do it alone. It takes a village. And to give you an idea of our partners, again, Agency Area and Aging, District Attorney's Office, Public Health, Public Guardian, Law Enforcement, just to name a few. This one day reflected a day in the life of Adult Protective Services. We need research. We need one statewide data gathering system. We need training. We need money. We need support at the local, state, and federal level. And we need to be proactive in our outreach and public education. An example of outreach and public education was 2 weeks ago in Oxnard. We had the Senior Crime Alert Forum. That was one of our partners, and we do rely upon them. Elder and dependent adult abuse is a crime, and so is not reporting it. Reports can be made 24/7 at the Adult Protective Services hotline, 654-3200. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Questions, board members? Comments?
I have one. This is an important issue in Ventura County, and it'll be an issue that will grow as we have more and more people move, as the baby boomers move into this population. And we have made a significant effort to try to increase the number of foster homes in Ventura County the last few years. And I just wanted to announce that we're trying to launch a new effort to recruit people to serve as senior ombudsman. The senior ombudsman program is an important link in this issue of adult protective services and investigating it. Specifically focuses on the 7,500 people that are in nursing homes right now. Many of them have no family members, no friends that look in on them at all, and they need somebody, some independent person from the outside to make sure that they're being taken care of, etc. We have a steady turnover in that program. It is much less of a commitment than making a commitment to being a foster family, where it's 24/7, 365 days a year, and it is something that is generally a lot of people right when they first retire move into this program. So I want to suggest this, as we have many people here in the county government building that hopefully are listening to this, that are getting ready to retire. But I'll give you an example. I spoke to them. There's one person, he has 6 nursing homes. He visits those 6 nursing homes once a month and checks on the clients in those 6 nursing homes. Now, some of them are small. Some of them are 8, 10 people at the facility. But he checks on them once a month. He does it at his convenience when it works for him, but they're unannounced visits. There's a training and a protocol. It is a great contribution that you can make to your community by becoming a senior ombudsman, and we don't have enough of them. The reason this person has 6 facilities when the ideal would be for this person to have about 3 facilities is that we don't have enough senior ombudsmen. So fortunately, these people are being real generous with their time. So if we can have those people complement the great work being done by our human service agency, that's really the partnership that we need. So if everybody can help lend a hand with the Senior Ombudsman Program, and I'm sure you can direct anybody to Mr. Myers, my office, we have all those contact numbers for that. So thank you.
Yes. Great. Supervisor Flynn.
Right. It's really nice and a good program to be able to call you for assistance. Just a couple of issues I'd like to point out from my experience, and we get quite a few calls, and issues about adult abuse. One was a lady who was approached by a rogue contractor who talked in South Oxnard, talked her into doing some repairs on the house. And she signed the contract and everything. Well, the repairs were terribly done. And she didn't have the money, the cash, to pay this contractor. So the contractor found out that she had some money in the bank. So he said, let's go and, in the form of a CD, let's go to the bank, which is Citibank, which is where my office is. He took her in there. The bank manager at that time felt something was happening here and told him to leave the bank, told him to forget about any more work with this lady. The bank manager called me. We took the lady back to her home, and the work was just horribly. Paint all over the place, walls punched in, and so forth. That's one issue. Another one is where a person becomes very elderly and has a will or a living trust, and a member of the family will attempt to change that to the detriment of that person and to the detriment of the other survivors. So what you're doing is tremendous. I really appreciate it. I really like to be able to call someone for help, and you're always there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board comments? I'd like to also thank you for your work. I'm going to step down to present the proclamation. And as you gave the phone number at the close of the presentation, I would also encourage that we offer out to the listening public, and whenever we can, the number 211. So
Yes.
if they can't remember that other number, they
Yes.
can pick up 211 and get right to APS and get to where whatever they
Give us
need
the
in the way of
information.
help and assistance.
Exactly.
It's that simple 211, call 211. And the proclamation that's going to recognize the Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Awareness Month, proclaiming May as that month, speaks to much of what you had in the presentation. I'd like to just call out a couple things that although all 50 states have laws against elder abuse, the incidents of abuse have increased by 150% over the last 10 years. And we baby boomers, reaching that age, is imperative that both professionals and laypersons become more aware of the scope of the issues that surround this topic and the people and the human lives that are impacted. And that by proclaiming this month, we're really encouraging all residents of our county to become aware and engaged in protecting our elderly. And the Senior Ombudsman Volunteer Program is an excellent one that Supervisor Bennett is promoting here, and it's just greatly needed. Having right now a family member that I am caring for who was in Orange County experienced what was frankly elder abuse, and having the knowledge that I did and having to help him was tremendous, and calling on professionals gave me great relief, but also him. So your work is appreciated. It is outstanding, and I'll step down to present this proclamation to recognize the month. Supervisor Michael.
Yeah, if I could make a comment while you're going down there, and that is, it's a real sad statement about our society and where we are today when we have, pardon me, elder abuse, to the extent that we have it. I mean, humans are not perfect, and we've always had these issues, but in the past, we have taken much better care of our elders and understood the knowledge and the experience that they could impart to us. There's so much discussion right now about how early you should retire and how late you should retire and all of these other issues, but I think what we first and foremost need to concentrate on is how do we protect and how do we honor the venerable senior citizens of this society. Certainly not kowtow, and certainly not make them invalids by not letting them do anything, respecting what it is that they want to do, but also keeping an eye out to make sure that that neighbor or that family member isn't being abused, the worst of which in my mind is the financial abuse, because it's harder to detect. And, when people wake up one day and their entire savings and their allotments are gone, it's a very sad day. So thank you for the work you do. It can't always be fun, but I'm sure when you have a win, it is a great feeling. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment also to thank you, and also it would be nice that we do promote the Senior Ombudsman Program. It is very important. When I first came on this job, I was trying to look at some state funding that we could get for a proactive approach to these convalescent homes. Right now we have task force that will go into bars, made up of from health department to law enforcement and drug and tobacco, and they'll look at bottles of liquor, make sure there's not fruit flies, and yet there's no money for going in proactively into convalescent homes and make sure that patients are getting hydrated and all their needs met. And we really do need to start focusing our attention on this. And we are going to have the greatest number of seniors ever in the history of our state and the nation. And it is hopefully, as we do increase those numbers, there will be greater attention and greater resources put to this. So I thank you for your efforts.
Richard Shaw, could you come up here? You all may know Rich. He's worked for our agency for how many years, Rich? 19 and a half. 19 and a half years. He had a nice little spread in the... 29. I thought so, but, be modest, okay. He had a nice spread and a feature article in the newspaper. And Rich has also been working with Supervisor Parks' staff on creating a forum, a countywide forum, and if you could tell us a little bit about that on our aging population.
I thank you for listening to me, and Supervisor Parks, I'm sure, can talk a lot more about the forum that's coming up, the Senior Summit, which will be in October, and the forum is designed to not just to inform people about the issues that seniors face, but also to gather information from the seniors so that we can find ways to close the gaps where there are gaps in the services that we provide. And that would include everything from seniors that are going into long-term care, whether that be a residential care facility or a nursing facility, to recreational opportunities for seniors that are able to be active. And I just wanted to thank the board for the support that they've given for the Adult Protective Services program and for the in-home services program, and of course the public authority that's an extension of the IHSS program. So again, thank you very much, and thank you, Ted. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Rich, for all your work.
Thank you.
We want to
Thank you
also
all for your
want to also wish Rich good luck as you're taking care of your father also, correct? Right, with this. Good for you.
That was such a great study, to take a snapshot in time and look at, all the kind of calls coming in. It gives you a really good perspective. And while it's not the kind of statistics we usually get, I think it really sends a good, strong message.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move to item 33. I know that our wonderful library director, Sterrett's been sitting patiently, but she enjoys our Tuesday morning episodes.
Good morning, Chair Long and board members.
Good morning.
Sterrett Kreisman from the Ventura County Library, and I'm here today with a grant application to the California State Library Literacy Services. The Ventura County Library has received funding from this source every year since the program first started in the mid-1980s, when the State Library decided that illiteracy was a statewide problem that needed some attention from them. The state programs change, the requirements change, but we have always been grateful for this funding, which helps us to maintain and sometimes to expand or change our literacy program. And while I'm here for your approval on the grant funds, I did want to make the point that the bulk of the funding for our literacy program comes from local sources, and we do quite a bit of fundraising for this program.
Questions?
Move approval.
It's a motion and a second. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Thank you so much for going after additional dollars. Every time we can use them all. Thank you. Next up, we have our County Clerk Recorder, item 34. Good morning, Mr. Schmidt.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Nicole. My first item today is a request for authorization to apply for Prop 41 funding, voter modernization funds. Under the Help America Vote Act of 2002, we are required to replace our lever machine punch card voting system. By 2006, in January, we must have a paper audit trail electronic voting machine of some sort in every polling place in order to meet the ADA requirements for visually impaired. This Prop 41 money, along with the HAVA funds that we already received and have in escrow, would make for the 3-and-1 match money, so there would be no out-of-pocket money to the county. What we have done is researched several systems and have decided on the Sequoia system for both an optical scan, which is a paper ballot, which looks like this. You can get all of the ballots on several sheets of paper, and it also has the capacity of doing bilingual voting and bilingual ballots, which were required under our consent decree with the Department of Justice. So what we're asking for is authorization to apply for the Prop 41 funding on that. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Move approval.
Motion and a second, hearing no objection. So ordered. Go get it.
Our second item, which I guess if I can move ahead on the agenda to item 35.
Absolutely.
Is I'm asking for your support to support AB 867, which was submitted by Assemblywoman Carol Liu from Los Angeles, to do a 5-year pilot program in the state of California for 7 counties to conduct all of their elections by mail. This would take effect in 2006, and it would essentially do away with polling places, of which we now have 315, and every registered voter would receive an absentee ballot. Now, of course, it would be up to the individual voter to vote that ballot and send it back, but it would alleviate the problem that we have of disenfranchising voters, long lines, uninformed votes, because people could sit down at their kitchen table and actually read what the measures are and read the candidate statements and vote informed. It's a 5-year pilot program only, and it would also save us approximately 10% on each election. The recall election, if you remember, cost the county approximately $1.2 million, which part of that was our regular overhead, but it was over $800,000 additional money that we didn't have. The last presidential election cost us well over $2 million, so even a 10% savings would be between $200,000 and $250,000 on a general election. So we would save money. We wouldn't have to hire 1,500 extra polling workers on election day. We wouldn't have to haul all the equipment around and set up the polling places and make sure that they're all ADA accessible, etc. But one thing that we would have to do is still maintain polling places for the visually impaired in each city. And we would have approximately 19 days in which we can move from city to city, advertising where they're going to be, and set up these polling places so people can either bring in their absentee ballots and drop them off there if they want the pleasure of going to a polling place, or if they are visually impaired and need to use the machine, they would be able to come in and vote at that place. So what I'm doing today is just asking for your support and a resolution to support AB 67. It's not law yet, and we feel that we've got an uphill battle, but we feel that it's a step in the right direction. It's really a win-win situation for everyone.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second. No questions? Question.
You just completed purging the voter list. When do you do that? When do you purge the voter list?
Well, the last, what we've just recently done was a national change of address update to the voter file. That was just, we're getting ready to do that one. The last purge was a couple months ago. After the November election, we sent out cards to everybody who we had heard nothing from in the last 4 years, who had not voted, no change of addresses. You know, that basically their record has been silent. But we do that about once every 4 years for a purge.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Let me just ask one further question. You may not know the answer yet, but by voting electronically, will this cause the precincts to disappear? What will happen with the precincts?
Well, pretty much they will disappear if everyone votes an absentee ballot, but we will still set up a precinct in each city to come in and vote electronically. More than likely, you know, in the city hall or a library or some central location.
To some extent, this is going to impact how campaigning is done then,
You're still going to have to walk the precincts, John.
Well, I understand that. I understand that, but when you erase all the lines, and each precinct has certain characteristics, we're going to have to look at that and see how that's done, because there end up being one big precinct for the county.
Well, the precincts will stay the same because there's different issues that come up in various precincts. For example, school district lines and things like that, or water districts and so forth. So there will still be precincts, but you won't have a polling place set up in those precincts.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other question?
Yeah, just, we've heard a lot about this. I happen to be very supportive of it. What's the track record with states like Oregon, et cetera? Does it actually increase the returned ballots?
Yeah,
Yes. And participation by the public in their democracy?
Yes, it does. Oregon, on the last presidential, had an experience of over 85% returned on the presidential election. Ventura County had a very high voter turnout at just over 79%. But the trend is that when you have absentee ballots, you do get a higher return on them. We had an 85% return on our absentee ballots in the last election.
Well, I think in today's modern world and busy lives that we all lead, that, you know, certainly to accommodate the citizens' ability to participate, you know, in the democratic vote is essential. And I know a lot of people who really are good citizens and very, you know, patriotic and et cetera, but they get busy, they get sent out of town, and, you know, unbeknownst to them, they get stuck in traffic. There's so many things that happen now that didn't happen 30 years ago to impact someone's ability to vote, that I think that the you know, permanent absentee is the way to go in the future. I just think that people are going to be too busy. And, you know, we always like to save money, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is putting that ballot in front of the voter and giving them the opportunity at their own leisure before the deadline to vote that ballot and get it back, and hopefully to do it informed, as you said.
And we will accept mailed ballots back up until the election day itself. We do not have to receive it prior to the election day, as long as it's postmarked on that day.
The only other question I have, and I do support the bill because I think it's the right way to go, but what would be the process to prevent fraud?
Signature verification, which we do now with all absentee voting. When you walk into a polling place, you can state your name and sign your name, but if you've got 12 or 1,300 people in that precinct, the poll workers aren't going to know every single person. So someone could come in and say they're Henry Smith and sign Henry Smith's name, and there's no verification done on the signature. But on absentee ballots, every signature is verified.
What do you do to prevent?
We have on file.
Electronically.
Yeah. What do you do to in today's technical world to prevent fraudulent documents?
Well,
I mean, say somebody wants to reproduce ballots and try, you know, I know we've got checks and balances, et cetera, but to try to unduly influence the outcome of an election by using fake, if you would, or fraudulent ballots. What do we do to verify these are authentic when we get them back?
Well, I think maybe Mr. Browning might be able to.
Okay, we don't need to go into that this morning. That's fine. But if you could let me know what it is that we do to make sure that these are certified real ballots.
They are numbered.
Right.
Yeah. Paper's controlled similar to what birth certificate paper is controlled. So,
and in today's world, it's getting more and more difficult to...
Yeah, very hard to forge that type of paper.
Right.
There are security measures in them. So.
Cool. That's all I wanted to know. I want to feel safe.
Other questions? There's a motion and a second. Hearing no objection.
Well, let me just make a comment.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I do object. I'm going to vote no. my concern is that this is 5 years, and if we find out after the first year that this is not something that is popular or something that it may have some glitches, I don't want to be stuck with it for 5 years. I listened to the mayoral election in Los Angeles today, and they're expecting as low as 15% turnout. You know, that's ridiculous. That isn't people voting. It's a minority. So I do support doing what we can to increase the number of people that vote. But I think particularly that the savings isn't really there. That I see a 10% savings isn't to me significant, but mostly the concern of that we would be stuck with this for 5 years. I could see maybe a 1-year pilot program. And then also, just to throw it out there, I think it would be beneficial to ask voters what they think about a change in the system. Maybe if we have an opportunity to put an advisory ballot measure on to ask the voters what they think about it, I think that would give us a better opportunity to get a feel for how people would support this or not, and I would like to have that information.
Are you finished?
I am.
Mr. Elections honorable person, are you telling us today that the opportunity to vote twice is going to be eliminated?
Yes, it will be. Unless you live
Oh,
in
then I
Chicago.
can't say vote early and often anymore.
Supervisor Bennett.
Madam Chair, if I could, just two things, just responding to Supervisor Park's thoughts on this, and one is, I think I support the motion specifically because in LA they're talking about a very low turnout. Vote by mail doesn't increase turnout as much during presidential elections as it will in those non-presidential elections. So you're going to see all those other elections, I think, have a dramatic increase. That's one. And two, I mean, if you're going to do a pilot program, you got to get enough data to actually learn something. I don't think from one election we would get enough. So I think it is prudent to get enough data that we could actually learn something about it. So I think it's really
However, Madam Chair, I'm a little sensitive about Supervisors Park. She will be experiencing this. Is that correct? I don't think I would want to go into an election experiencing the first time ever voting electronically.
Well, that's correct, but I will experience it also.
And so will I. So you better be fair here. There's going to be at least 2 on the board then, and Christine and lots of people that will experience this. And change is good. We can handle it.
All right, then we have a 4-1, is that correct? 4 in support and 1 objection. We thank you, and let's see if it makes the light of day. Thank you for your work on it. Thank you all.
For your good work.
Right.
Thank you.
The vote's in the mail.
That's right. All right, board, let's see if we can do item 36, the CEO's office, filling a seat on the Campaign Finance Ethics Commission. See if we can get that one out of the way.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Nicole. Del Tompkins from the County Executive Office. The recommendations before you today will initiate the process to fill a seat on the Campaign Finance Ethics Commission. The first recommendation is to designate retired Judge Joseph Haddon as your independent selector. Judge Haddon has filled this role before, and he has indicated to us his willingness to do so again. The commissioner whose term will expire on June 30th is from District 5, which means that we are requesting that Supervisor Flynn provide the independent selector with 3 nominees. The commissioner whose term is expiring is Commissioner Rabbi Sherwood, and he is eligible for reappointment to a full 5-year term effective July 1st, assuming, of course, that he's interested and that the supervisor is interested in including his name as one of the 3 nominees. Each of the nominees would be asked to fill out the standard application form that you would fill out for any board-appointed commission or committee, as well as a supplemental questionnaire, and that information will go to the independent selector, who will then make his recommendation to the full board. Are there any questions?
Questions? Motion and a second. Hearing no questions. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none. So ordered. Thank you. Move the process. Let's, okay, policy matters, item number 37. Supervisor Flynn?
Yes, move the appointment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Hearing no objection. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Item 38, Supervisor Parks.
Thank you. I got 20 people interested in being appointed to the Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council, the Oak Park MAC. 2 of them dropped out. I interviewed all the rest, and we just had a wonderful group of folks and learned a lot and got some great information. And I see all these people who applied as resources for all the myriad of commissions and committees that we appoint to, and actually I already have one that I'll be subsequently appointing to an opening that is available. But at this time, it was tough and to really cull it down to 2 people, and I wish we had more seats available that we could have more people served, but unfortunately I had to get it down to 2. And so at this time I would request that the board appoint Bonnie Biddison and Jacob Capitz to the Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council.
So motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Thank you. Item 39, Public Works, authorization to apply for a grant, California Integrated Waste Management Board. Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr. Pakala.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Nicole. My name is Reddy Pakala with the Water and Sanitation Department, Public Works Agency. The item before you is to authorize the chair to sign a resolution which authorizes our department to apply for a California Integrated Waste Management Board 11th cycle used oil block grant for about $25,000. The grant is non-competitive. When a grant is awarded, we will return to your board for contract approval, budgetary adjustments, and acceptance. Since 1997, the block grant program has provided much-needed funding to establish and maintain certified oil certification centers in the unincorporated area of the county. A total of 9 certified centers now serve UA. The oil collection from these centers is recycled into quality re-refined oil, motor oil, and metals from the filter is transformed into a construction material such as rebar. To date, more than 95,000 gallons of used oil and over 8,000 pounds of oil filters were collected and processed. We are asking your board to approve our recommendation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to respond.
Other questions?
Move approval.
It's a motion.
It's a good program.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any objection to the motion? This is an excellent program. I mean, the numbers are just, they stand for themselves, and it really does so much for our environment. And seeing no objections, so ordered. And thank you, sir.
If I may, this is a great program. It's wonderful to be able to provide this service and to see this hazardous waste essentially recycled and used. At the same time, we also have facilities, gas station or mechanics that have to take in this kind of toxic or hazardous material, and then they have a huge expense of trying to dispose of it. Is that correct?
I believe so.
I think they have to, in order to take it in, they have to pass some permit requirements and all that. I'm wondering if these kind of funds can be used to assist those that don't get the grant to be able to take it in and maybe expand the service further.
We'll look into that when we come back to your board.
Okay, because I have heard from a few, at least in my area, that are concerned about the tremendous expense of having to dispose of this. But there might be some opportunity here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good question, and thank you. We'll go quickly through the rest of these before we do our 11 o'clock. So item 40 is the emergency exists required, blah, blah. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Long, board members, Mr. Nicole. I can give you a brief presentation or just answer questions.
Okay, board members, any questions on this? This is in my district. I've been briefed. I'm fine with it.
Move the item.
There's a motion and a second. Hearing no objection. So ordered.
Very much.
Thank you. And thank you. In fact, it's very needed. Thank you for putting this together. Item 41 is a report of the use of emergency contract authority.
Chair, members
Mr.
of the board,
Kuhn.
this is an additional item for emergency contracting to remain in place for the Stormwater Protection District, and any questions, I'll be glad to respond.
Move approval. Is there any issue with whether it's still a declared emergency when you use this method?
No, it's not.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Item 42.
Move to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file. Hearing no objection, so ordered. We're taking a 2-minute break. The chair is, and then we'll do our 11 o'clock.
Power of the gavel.
That's right. Then we'll go to our 11 o'clock item if you need to set up or whatever you need to do there. Feel free to do it. You better quit talking. Okay. approximately 1 hour for us to have a good discussion on it. And
Good morning, Chairman Long, members of the board, Mr. Nicole. Yes, the item before you today is basically a report, our first report back to the board on a project that you authorized us to receive grant funding for in December to take a look at the title of the grant application was something along the lines of removing, let me see if we can get the, can you get that going? There we go. Okay. There we go. This kind of talked about the grant being removing zoning barriers to creating conservation parcels. That's a fairly broad expression and could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So what we've been working on for the past several months, planning staff, is taking a look at the details and to see how we can bring about excuse me, removing those zoning barriers. The grant was from the Santa Clara River Trustees, I believe is their name, and the focus was on the Santa Clara River. As we looked into it, it made sense to us to broaden that and not simply limit it to that one particular geographic area within the county. So it's taking a look not only at river parcels, but such, as you'll see when we go through this, the proposal would apply to any parcels that may have biologically significant areas within them. I'm going to take a few moments, I think, to talk about the general concepts, and then I'm going to ask Debbie Millay of our staff, who's been doing a lot of the work, to kind of get into the details of the proposals that we're bringing before you today. And then I also might add that Nancy Francis, manager of our residential permit section, is here. She knows far more about our subdivision ordinance than I will ever know, and if the board is interested in talking about some of the nuances of the subdivision ordinance, Nancy would be here to answer those questions. So the basic issue, as was described to the board in December, is that our minimum lot size requirements seem to inhibit the purchase of property for conservation purposes. And the two specific areas that, of no surprise, I think, would be that our minimum lot size requirements within our open space areas, which currently are 10-acre minimums. The board, I think, as you're familiar within the general plan update that you'll be seeing this year, had asked us to look at potential 20-acre minimums, but as it stands today, there are 10-acre minimums within that area. And then the other area was within our agricultural exclusive areas, which have 40-acre minimum parcel sizes. So kind of some examples. We wanted to kind of give you a picture of the issue in a little more detail. Property owners, for example, these may be farmers along the Santa Clara River, and we'll focus maybe along that area, would not be interested in, if they had a parcel that could not be in some way subdivided and still meet those minimum parcel sizes, they aren't interested. In other words, they would have to sell the entire parcel or no parcel at all, and it creates a barrier in that sense. Or, for example, the conservation agency, even if the farmer were interested in selling the entire parcel, the conservation agency isn't interested in taking farmland. That's not their primary purpose. Their primary purpose, obviously, is to take biologically sensitive land and restore it, preserve it, or what have you. So wanted to run through maybe some examples. I think picture's worth 1,000 words, and maybe this will help the board kind of get an appreciation of the issues. This is an example of a parcel that would be along the Santa Clara River, and you may have currently, as you see on the left, a single conforming parcel of 100 acres, zoned agricultural exclusive. Everything is, as it should be per all of our general plan and zoning ordinance and subdivision requirements.
Excuse me, what would the minimum lot size be then on this?
40 acres.
Thank you.
And so you may have, in this instance, you can see a bottom portion of the parcel is within the riverbed, Santa Clara River, not currently farmed, but it is a parcel that may be of interest to a conservation agency to preserve, restore, what have you, that parcel. The proposal might be from the farmer to sell the southern 20 acres of that property to a conservation agency. our current structure, our current rules say that can't be done, because that bottom part of the parcel, that 20 acres, does not meet our minimum requirements for agricultural exclusive. Another example here would be if a lot line adjustment where you may have two adjacent lots under the same ownership, that currently you have a conforming parcel there, which is largely in the river, and a legal non-conforming parcel adjacent to it in this example, which should have a 40-acre minimum. What they would like to do, obviously, is move that lot line, and so that the farmer can retain in entirety the property that he would like to farm, and then, excuse me, sell the remainder parcel to the conservation agency. In this case, in order to accomplish that, you might create two non-conforming parcels. Again, the current requirements and standards that we have would not allow that to take place, even though, as you can see in this map, it really would be the logical thing to do.
Could I ask, what is the minimum for the Williamson Act?
10 acres.
Thank you.
The last example I wanted to run through before I asked Debbie to come up and talk about the proposals to address the issue is looking at a parcel that may have, again, a conforming parcel, 80 acres. You can see it has a large portion of it within the river. And in this proposal, the farmer may wish to keep actually a relatively small segment of the property, and it is the bulk of the property that the conservation agency may be interested in. And they just want to retain that 20 acres. Again, that 20 acres would not meet our minimum parcel size requirements. And this option is not currently available to the property owner if they wish to do so. In this case, the conservation parcel, interestingly enough, would be a conforming parcel because it does meet the minimum. It's above the 40 acres, but the farmer wishes to retain the 20 acres for active farming. And as I said, our standards wouldn't allow them to do that. Hopefully that kind of gives you a flavor, a quick rundown of some of the issues that might be the property owners may be dealing with. And so as we've evaluated that, we've looked at some possible solutions, and what I'd like to do is have Debbie come up and run through those with you, and then open it up for discussion and direction from the board. Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Debbie. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Debbie Millay. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Nichols. Kind of picking up here where Chris took you through the examples, now we're going to move on to the specific things that we're planning to do. Basically, we have to amend three parts of our regulations. We have to add an amendment to the general plan, we have to go with the non-coastal zoning ordinance, and we have to amend the subdivision ordinance. Looking at that in a little more detail, in terms of the general plan, what we need to do is add an additional lot area exception to those that are already in the general plan. The ones that we already have now, we allow exceptions for affordable or elderly housing developments. We allow exceptions for public purposes, including fire, police, water wells, flood control, and other public health and safety facilities. And we allow exceptions for cultural heritage sites. And what we'd be doing is adding one new exception for conservation parcel maps for conservation purposes. In the non-coastal zoning ordinance, again, we're adding exceptions. Because the controlling permit authority resides in the subdivision ordinance rather than the zoning ordinance, most of the requirements and conditions are going to be in the subdivision ordinance, but as far as the zoning ordinances, we'll be adding the exception. We'll be adding some definitions and some other information that complete the structure. In terms of the subdivision ordinance, we don't actually need to add an exception. The current one already covers it. The existing lot area exceptions include lots dedicated for flood control, natural resource preservation, common open space, or other similar purpose. So what we're doing is simply going with that. No new exception would be needed.
Would you mind backing up one?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I answer any questions about?
Okay, thank you.
So we would not add a new exception to the subdivision ordinance. What we do want to do is make sure that when we allow these kinds of exceptions to go through, that we are meeting the needs and the purpose that we're trying to accomplish here, and that it's not being used for other purposes. So prior to any conservation parcel map, which would involve either a substandard conservation parcel or a substandard non-conservation parcel or both, Prior to that being approved, the Planning Commission would have to make these findings. And I want to go into a little bit of detail here on the non-conservation parcel. If you remember the examples that Chris exhibited, in some cases the piece that was left over was substandard size, and in some cases the piece that was left over was not. If the piece that was left over was of standard size, then this condition does not apply. It's just a regular parcel. The farmer's farming is 50, 60 acre, 40 acre agricultural parcel. This first finding does not apply. If we are creating a below minimum lot size leftover or remainder parcel, then the finding must be made that that parcel, if created, is of a size and shape to be suitable for uses permitted by its zone, and this normally AE, but it might be OS. And if it is zoned AE, that it would be large enough to qualify for a Land Conservation Act contract. And in this, that's kind of standing in for our assumption that we want a piece of parcel, a property that's large enough to be feasible to farm. We don't want 6,000 square feet or something like that. The second,
I'm sorry. So that first bullet then states that the non-conforming one has to at least be large enough to fall within the Williamson Act. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And the second two findings are your basic standard planning language that we would apply to most of these kinds of permits. The conservation parcel map is not detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare, or to the use, enjoyment, or valuation of neighboring properties, and that the conservation parcel map is compatible with good zoning practice. These are pretty generic findings that you're used to looking at, I'm sure. Then also, if the findings can be made, we also have conditions of approval that we're adding, that the conservation parcel must be transferred to a conservation organization prior to recordation. So we get the map approved, and there's a period of time that elapses typically before the recordation occurs, but the recordation does not occur until the conservation parcel has been transferred to the organization. Additionally, there will be a deed restriction recorded on the conservation parcel that specifies the prohibited and permitted uses. We did give some thought to embedding these in the ordinance language, but based on our experience that whenever we set out detailed requirements in the ordinance language, we find a case that's just perfect, everything we want, and just doesn't fit that language. So we're going to try and allow a little bit of flexibility by having a deed restriction on each one that says, okay, these uses are permitted, these are prohibited, and we have some guidance language in the ordinance. Last and certainly not least, an easement or deed restriction in favor of the county to ensure the conservation parcel's continued use for conservation purposes in perpetuity. So the idea is we're not giving this away. This parcel is going to be used, it's going to be conserved. It's going to be used to preserve open space, habitat, valuable river bottom, riparian habitat, so forth. It's not going to, 5 years down the road, appear back again on the open market. And so the next steps in the process, if we receive from the board today authorization to proceed, what we would do is we would take our current draft language and kind of run it through, try and final it and put in any comments that you may have, any concerns that you may have. We would then want to go with some outreach to the property owners and the conservation organizations to make sure that what we're designing here actually fits the needs and the concerns that they have. Take it out to the agricultural organizations and all the interested parties that would be involved in this process. Obviously, we have to complete the environmental review. We would then bring the finished product or the final draft product to the Planning Commission, and then it would be back to you for your decision. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Yeah, if I might. I'm certainly in favor of this. When the government gets in the way of its own purpose, it's kind of stupid. But the question I have is, how will it be validated that the parcel is actually qualified for conservation? And I know you can say, well, that's their business. It's a conservation organization. Well, I don't trust everybody in the world. And we know what kind of games can be played. And so is there some sort of criteria that the Planning Commission or Planning Department, more importantly, would put upon review of this non-standard conservation parcel, or flip-flop? It's it's going to be fine, but the remainder parcel, the private parcel, is non-conforming.
We actually took a slightly different approach to that issue, and what we did was we tried to define the conservation organization. And actually, sorry, my batteries are low.
My computer does things like that to me.
It went.
Oops.
Yeah. Okay, well, returning to your question, you wanted to say, how do we control that the conservation parcel really is a worthy parcel? We have chosen to leave that determination to the conservation organization and limit ourselves to ensuring that the conservation organization is a reputable and respected one, and so we are developing criteria to say that, you know, it's not Aunt Lizzie's Chicken Preserve. It's a reputable, recognized conservation organization that is spending its limited funds to purchase this property for its reasons. And we will try and control we will try and ensure that the conservation organization is reputable, and then leave to them the decision what constitutes an acceptable parcel.
Well, reputable is in the eye of the beholder.
We didn't actually.
And there are some organizations that claim to be environmental, and they have other underlying purposes, and that's my concern, is that we truly want this to be, for conservation purposes, a valuable, scientifically supported habitat or endangered species, whatever it is the organization is trying to preserve, because it's, like I said, it's stupid for us to get in the way of an organization that's trying to preserve the natural river or whatever. I don't in any way want to do that, and I think that our inflexible zoning laws sometimes create more havoc than they help. But I am concerned that this not become a tool for organizations that are trying to stop a project, trying to whatever, because we already have enough of that, and we need to be, and I believe legally we need to make sure that it's for the purposes which are stated and not for any other underlying purpose.
If I might try and respond to that as well. Within the zoning ordinance, we will have to define a conservation parcel, and that will become a reference point. I think within that definition, it'd be appropriate for us to use the language that we have both in our general plan and our initial study guidelines that talks about biological significance and has some fairly broad descriptions of it, but also adds the requirement that there be a biological study to clarify and determine that those conditions do exist. And I think it would be appropriate for that language to be added to that definition, and I think that that would take care of it.
As long as there's some definition in there, because, like I said, I think it's a great thing to do. I don't have any issue with the objective. It's just the implementation I don't want to become a problem somewhere down the line. And at times we've seen that happen. So, but if with that language, I can support at least moving forward.
Other questions?
I have a hard time imagining a situation that you have suggested where it'd be used as a tool to stop a development, since these agencies purchased the land from willing owners. So I don't quite understand how it could be used for other purposes. But the question I have is, the Board of Supervisors approved something I brought forward in terms of looking at doing a natural resource overlay conservation zone. And I think if you had that overlay zone, you wouldn't need all these deed restrictions. Right now, on open space in the county, you can go plop a house on it. I don't know if having this conservation area would preclude that, for example. You know, they might want to put a visitor center in a parking lot. And so I'm just saying this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just saying this in terms of I would love this to be coupled so that when we do go forward with this natural resource overlay zone, we could zone it on parcels that have been specifically set aside for conservation, and then we don't have to worry about those issues in the future. So I encourage that, and I know that you know, we also have some funds available looking at doing a biological study. And when I first moved forward with the natural resource conservation overlay zone, it was to just apply it to public lands, but I would also suggest that you would put it on areas that are even under a nonprofit 501c3 if it's set aside for a conservation area.
Yeah, Chairwoman, Supervisor Parks, I think those two will work in tandem when and if we get to that point. The overlay zone itself would probably not address the issue that we're addressing here today, which is the parcelization issue. So I think when they come together, they may be able to help one another accomplish that goal. But to speak to the issue of the overlay zone, as I think we've reported to you in the past, we're continuing to work with the grant funds we do have to develop the scientific basis for that zone and collecting that information, which will be very helpful to us in identifying what those conservation parcels are. So hopefully they'll all weave together over time and help us accomplish that.
Actually, I think you've got three things now, as I see it. You have this proposal about how to make it easier to get these parcels into conservation. Absolutely support that. You have the money you have for a biological study, which can incorporate zoning. And then you have what I brought to the board, which was establish that zone so that we don't have so much, so we can protect land that's designated open space, which we don't have that ability now, at least protecting it from development. And looking at this conservation area, this would be just prime for that kind of overlay zone. So it would be nice to get that all together in a nice package, because then we're actually accomplishing the mission that we've set out here. Right now, I guess the way you're looking at protecting these conservation leftover parcels is through deed restriction. And I would imagine that deed restriction would preclude development.
Yes, I think that's the basic concept here, are that it would restrict development to only that which would be consistent with the conservation of that parcel. And it may, as Debbie mentioned, there's any number of possibilities, and we kind of talked about how much flexibility to provide, but some parcels may be best left entirely alone, so to speak, or some may need some restoration work to be done. They may not be exactly in the condition that we'd like today, and others may be appropriate for a trailhead or things of that nature, but I wouldn't anticipate any development beyond that kind of activity at this point.
That's good, because there are, I have seen many situations where you have, I'm on the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and there are things that have occurred where lands could get traded for a park, for example, or they need a road easement through the conservation area. There's different things that come to play, so being able to have that deed restriction be all-encompassing as well as we can to assure that, just what you said, that it's designated specifically for conservation, and that's, I'll feel more comfortable once we get the actual zoning in place too, which would include roads going through conservation areas and such. So thank you.
Supervisor Bennett.
Thank you, and I appreciate those comments. And it'd be interesting, as you said, when this all comes together. Right now, what we have in front of us, I just would offer that I think staff's done a good job again of trying to, these are sort of complicated issues and they come at you a number of different ways. I just want to be clear that in fact, I want to make the motion to accept staff's recommendation, but I want to be clear in item 2, it says provide direction to planning staff. The direction I want to provide is that we include all of the directions that you just put up in your PowerPoint, because that's absolutely essential. That's the direction. So I want to be consistent with staff's recommendation, but everything that was put in the PowerPoint I want to be consistent with here. So that would be the motion that I would. That'd be the motion I'd make to move forward with this.
It's a motion and a second. Further questions, Supervisor
Let me
Flynn.
just say that the last point, definition of conservation organization, the last one there is extremely important, I think, and it's the one that concerns the Coastal Conservancy managers, I know, and it's one we really have to pay attention to.
And I also will support the motion and just really stress that getting that overlay zone to me is a lot more effective and efficient than doing a deed restriction piecemeal. And it also will have assist in the public lands that have already been set aside for open space. Right now, none of this is protected.
We will make sure that the Nature Conservancy doesn't get to participate in any of these things. Is that correct? Right. I see the Nature Conservancy representative E.J. Remington is here, and appreciate him and the other conservancies that we have in Ventura County. The Ojai Valley Land Conservancy is trying to move forward. Other organizations that are trying to move forward. The one thing I would just offer, local groups with more than 1,000 members, and I may want to later when that comes back, we may want to look at that number a little bit. That may be, for the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, very reputable, doing a great job, lots of things, but they may have 850 members.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, you did?
Also,
fine.
I'm sure these are just kind of broad bullet points, but the third bullet point is not just 50 acres, but 50 acres of open space conservation land.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
50 acres of beachfront property at Malibu, right?
Oh, yeah, that'll work. There's a motion and a second. I hear no further objections or direction. Appreciate staff's good work on this. Think it gives us a good framework to move forward, and appreciate the partnership of folks who've helped you with working on these areas. Thank you so much, and it passes with no objections.
Thank you very much.
Good work.
Thank you. Okay, Board, at this time, we'll go back for closed session and lunch. Will there be an announcement?
No, there will not.
Okay.